окупанти до нас в Україну. Форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів. Робить примар. Байрактар. Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить. Хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар? Байрактар. Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ. Тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Наші
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 798 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And Ukraine is absolutely hammering Russia and striking oil refineries near Moscow. It's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, as we've gotten news that the Russian government under Putin is purging top officials in the Russian armed forces, and that may be reaching Shoigu himself here in the near future. We've also heard of a major oil refinery attack in the area of Ryazan. We have also, on top of that, seen a lot of combat information coming out of the area of Ukraine, showing the frontline situation, and on top of that, a UFO has been spotted flying over Eglin Air Force Base just south of Enforcer HQ in the panhandle of Florida. We're going to be covering all of that today. That's actually going to be the last thing we cover in the news because it's not a Ukraine-related topic, but it's something we wanted to throw in because it was an interesting thing to see, and something worth reporting on the news. But nevertheless, we are going to be reporting on everything we can today inside of the Ukraine war. There is a load to talk about, a lot, and it's time for us to get into it immediately by showing y'all one of the bigger things that's happened today. 600 kilometers inside of Russia, at the town of Ryazan, which is one of the larger towns along the E30 motorway that heads into Moscow and goes directly from Ryazan and into the area of Tolyatti and Samara, we were able to see that the Ukrainian drone attack was able to obliterate and destroy one of the larger oil refineries within this region of Russia. We were able to see the footage today in this clip. Here it is. That right there is the fireball from the refinery after it has been hit, and the gases are venting out and catching on fire in large numbers.
I think the Rosneft stock just went to the floor.
Oh, believe it. It really did go to floor. Much like executives' head go in impact floor after fall out the window. But beyond that, very nice to see that they were able to hit this refinery. It was 600 kilometers inside of the Russian Federation, and this is also another picture of the strike. It appears to have been right afterwards, and we can see the fire burning on top of the refinery right here. If we were to go to the city of Ryazan, which is right here on the map, and we were to go and look around, we would see that the oil refinery is actually on its southern side. It is actually owned by the RNPK oil refinery company, and we could see that it's a fairly large part of the city, probably a really big part of Ryazan's economy as well. We could see that there's a decent amount of plots that they left for further development in the future, but sadly, I don't think this company is going to get the chance to further develop this refinery, as it appears to have already been knocked out as of just, literally tonight. We are assuming that this oil refinery will most likely be out of action for a good while, because once again, the damage is targeting a specific part of the plant that usually requires some Western components to be able to function properly, and this means that this oil refinery will most likely be out of action for weeks, if not months, while trying to find some sort of a replacement part, or trying to bring at least a part of the refinery back online where it resume limited amounts of production. This is
now, I cannot remember real quick, but when I saw this earlier and I reported on it in the short war video, I could have sworn that refinery had been hit before, because there was one south of Moscow that was Rosneft, that was sort of in between Moscow and Samara, that had gotten hit maybe a couple of weeks back. And I don't think this is the exact same one, but is it close to it or something?
I'm not really sure. I'm trying to think of which refinery that was. And
I think actually it was not Samara. It was in between Moscow and also Kazan. It was somewhere in between there, so it was more to the east.
Yeah, it was more to the east. Let's see, where in the world would that... Wait a minute, I know where it was. I think it was the Zelenodolsk refinery, I believe. Maybe? Wait a minute, hang on, is there even a refinery?
It might have been.
It was somewhere around here, I think it was. Or... Wait, no. It was down here near Samara and Tolyatti itself. It was the refinery that's right here. And then there was, I think, a second refinery a little bit further over from that over here that was also hit as well at the same time. So I think those are the ones that we're talking about. But nevertheless, another refinery has been knocked out. It is, once again, a larger refinery within the Russian Federation, and due to the lack of this vital oil that the Russians need to be able to keep running the war effort, the deficit of Russian oil will grow overnight, and we will see that the Russians will be consuming even more oil that they're not replacing, meaning that, once again, the ticking time bomb of how long can the Russians fight the war before they run out of gas is now becoming a lot shorter, and will most likely be shortened by maybe a week or a week and a half at this point. Moving on from that news inside of Ryazan, we have also gotten some news that we can take from the British Ministry of Defense, letting us know that the situation inside of Moscow has become a little bit more serious than we originally anticipated. Many of y'all will know that a Russian general has been arrested, put on trial, and sentenced for corruption inside of the Russian armed forces. This is something that's been reported on about a week and a half ago, and at the moment, we thought that he was going to be the only one that was going to be tried and prosecuted for any form of corruption within the Russian armed forces. It appears that that's not the case, according to what the British Ministry of Defense's intelligence has been able to find out. According to the information that they have, the investigation into the Russian Deputy Defense Minister Timur Ivanov has likely pulled in the more senior First Deputy Defense Minister Ruslan Taslikov. It has been reported that Taslikov has been questioned by the FSB in connection with the Ivanov case. Salikov, was just how you actually pronounce it, not Taslikov or however I was saying it, has been described as a patron of Ivanov. Salikov is likely effectively number 3 in the Ministry of Defense hierarchy, meaning that this is the third from the top under Shoigu, after Defense Minister Shoigu and Chief of the General Staff, General Valery Gerasimov. So it is Shoigu, Gerasimov, and then Salikov. And this is very interesting here because it looks like the investigation into corruption is now going to move up to start investigating and possibly even prosecuting Salikov, who is right below Gerasimov and Shoigu, which many of y'all have heard about for a long time in this war. He worked under Shoigu in the Ministry of Defense of Civil Defense and Emergency Situations and followed Shoigu firstly to the Moscow region governorship and then in 2012 to the Ministry of Defense and has been there ever since. There is also a realistic, holy moly, thank you, Walter. Goodness gracious.
Thank you, Walter.
And huge thanks to you. We'll make sure to get back to that in just a second, but there is also a realistic possibility, according to the British Ministry of Defense, that investigations into Ivanov could also affect the Russian finance minister, Anton Siluanov, with some sources claiming that the MOD construction agencies, meaning the Russian Army Corps of Engineers most likely, built a house for him. They went out and built a house.
That's the catch is, though, that sounds pretty much normal for, like, Russian corruption. That's somewhat, like, status quo. I think they pretty much all do that. I wonder if this guy here is being prosecuted to basically send a message to Shoigu that he's also not untouchable. Because, with the war dragging on this long, I'm sure the military leaders are getting frustrated with that and really not making any progress hardly at all. So it could be Putin trying to send a message.
I think it may be a multitude of things. That's one of them. But I'll circle back in just a second. I want to make sure to read the last part because this last part's hilarious. But then I'll circle back and talk about that a little bit more because there are a lot of different things that this could be showing, a telltale sign of one or multiple different things. Corruption, according to the British Ministry of Defense in their own monologue, has long been a problem in the Russian Ministry of Defense. Who would have thought? In 2019, Chief Military Prosecutor Valery Petrov said that corruption was pretty much the root of most of the problems in the state of the rule of law. Well, this guy is actually very observant. I'm assuming that he's no longer the Chief Military Prosecutor in Russia because that was a little bit too dead on the nail. But beyond that, corruption was a factor in Russia's poor performance, particularly early in the Ukraine conflict, where corruption was blamed for expired ration packs and poor quality tires, and fuel embezzlement was also reported. Now, I want to find this out before I circle back around to what this may be showing. Let me go pull up Valery Petrov, and let's see if he's still the chief prosecutor. Let's see here. Let's see. So I'm finding a Valery Petrov that looks like Junior Soprano from The Sopranos. This is not the guy that we're looking for, but I thought I'd show that to y'all, just in case any of y'all know about The Sopranos TV show. The guy looks a lot like him. But beyond that, we need to find this guy, because what happened to him? So let's see, let me make sure I got his name right. Valery, so it was spelled with a Y. That may be why I didn't pull it up. But when I type that in, it autocorrects. This guy, literally, this guy, crazily enough, on the internet, does not exist. Like, he's not even an existing person on here for me to pull up and look into. So going off of that, I'm assuming that this guy has been erased from existence, the chief military prosecutor who said that, because I can't find anything on the guy. But beyond that, there are a lot of things that this is starting to show. And Matthew, you kind of hit on one of them. It's to show that Shoigu isn't untouchable, but maybe, just maybe, this purge is starting to happen because Putin is getting word that there's some talks in the military about how badly the war is going and possibly trying to force an end to it by making a move on the government, some kind of a putsch or a coup d'etat of a sort. And for that reason, Putin has now had the FSB stuck onto some of the top officials of the armed forces and also other elements of the government to try and make sure that the rest of them remain so fearful of what may happen before they can even conduct a coup that they will not conduct one. It looks a lot like a purge of a sort because it's going after pretty much enemies of the state, wasting resources, corrupt officials. And we know that in Russia, corruption is the way of life. So for them to be going after corrupt officials, this sounds very purge-esque from the great purges that Stalin conducted back in the 30s, in my opinion. So maybe it is to purge and to show Shoigu that he's not untouchable in these purges, and he may be the next target to sleep with one eye open. Maybe that's what they're trying to get across.
It could be. And, you know, considering a while back you had Gerasimov sort of waffling a little bit. He was doing some weird stuff, kind of going in and out behind the scenes and things like that. We really don't know what's happening in the Russian military. But one thing we do know for certain is that pretty much everybody who's been watching this war has known for a long time that the Russians are not very well orchestrated when it comes to their government and their military leadership. So the longer this thing drags out and the war keeps just dragging on with the Russian losses mounting higher and higher and higher, and also basically the end of the year deadline for Russia to basically run out of equipment is coming up pretty rapidly. I think that pressure might be starting to get to the actual leaders themselves, causing Putin to do this purge.
I really think it is, and it looks as though that there may also be another reason why there's starting to be purges, is that the purges are supposed to be hurry up and have some progress to show, otherwise you'll end up in prison or worse. That may be the other thing that they're trying to get across as well. There may be a whole bunch of reasons that this purge is happening, but nevertheless, it is starting to show that the Russian government is under a severe amount of strain and pressure, considering that they are going to start conducting purges at this time of year, especially considering that we know that the war is coming around to an end probably really soon, probably by the later end of this year or the very beginning of next year. It looks as though they're trying to put a lot of pressure onto the armed forces to either win the conflict or otherwise be put in prison or executed due to their failures, one or the other. But beyond that, this news is all incredibly interesting inside of Russia and showing a lot's going on. Meanwhile, down in Fantasyland in Chechnya, we got to see that the Chechen armed forces were conducting some training today, and we were able to see pictures of this. First, we got to see them in the middle of what I would call a scrapyard or a junkyard, trying to move around piles of tires. As we all know that in Ukraine, piles of tires are very common. In fact, they're the biggest enemy of the Russian army. Because like the report from the Ministry of Defense was saying, rotten tires ended up screwing over the Russians at the beginning of the war. Not only that, we got to see them conducting some rifle training with some wooden pallets behind them in probably the cheapest looking rifle range I've ever seen. And then moving on from that and into the last picture, we then got to see them walking around a field. So overall, it looks as though they're just kind of doing whatever. I don't know what the Chechen Kadyrovites are even up to anymore. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news.
Do you have the picture of Kadyrov's son, by the way, just by chance?
Do we have it on Twitter?
Yes, we do. Like, there was a propaganda poster that the Russians or the MOD put up. It was of Kadyrov's 16-year-old son telling grown men how to be real men.
Let's see here. Wait a minute, hang on.
It's so cringy.
Where in the... Oh my goodness. Oh,
yeah, take a look at that.
Oh, no way. This is real. Like, this is actually real.
It's real. 100%.
Oh my
like,
Lord.
the Russian MOD put this on the side of walls. Look at that, man. A 16-year-old kid telling 40-year-old men how to be men. This kid right here looks like he's barely a squeaker.
Man, this is wrong. This is just wrong. And let's see here. In this advertisement, according to the caption, Adam Kadyrov, 16-year-old son of Ramzan Kadyrov, rants about the choice of a real man. He's 16 years old. He's not even old enough to be in the Russian armed forces, technically. You have to be like 18, I think. So this, what the hell is this? This is ridiculous, man. Dude, honestly, Chechnya in the modern day is like Fantasyland. Like, anything goes down there. You can just do the stupidest stuff and it counts. Like, I don't know what goes on down there. I will bet you that if you're someone in Chechnya, if you're the strongest person in Chechnya and you can throw a large boulder farther than everyone else, you probably get a position in the government, because that's impressive in Chechnya these days. Because this kind of stuff is crazy stupid. Really stupid. I mean, even to the... I can't even really talk about this too much, because this is...
You know what else is even more stupid than that is look at his magazine on that gun. First of all, it looks like an AR of some sort, at least from the view I'm getting right here. Also, he has apparently a Magpul mag in that. They hate the West so much, but they're using our equipment at the same time. How does that work?
Man, they hate us because they ain't us. You know, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly.
Exactly, man. Like that's the whole reason they hate the West is because they aren't the West. But still, oh my goodness, this is really a sad state of affairs aside of Chechnya these days. That's all I can say. But with that, we're going to be moving on from Chechnya because we can only look at that so much. And we're about to be moving on into the United States really quickly because there is one thing I want to make sure that we cover because many of y'all will know that a lot of people have been asking questions, particularly over the past 2 to 3 days in the super chats and the live chats about are tanks dead and what is the future of the tank. And many people have had many different ideas. The tank will die, the tank will completely evolve into a totally different form where it doesn't even look like it is today. And one of the theories I had is that in the future, tanks will be largely the same they are right now, but at the same time, they'll also have a large amount of active protection systems built in. Probably all vehicles in the armed forces will have different forms of active protection systems that are built into their vehicles to try and protect them as best it can. And something very interesting came out today from the Pentagon or the Department of Defense that tells me that that future is now today. It literally just turned into the present day. It's no longer in the future. A statement was made, according to the Key Post, by the U.S. Department of Defense, saying that in the United States, plans are underway to replace every Bradley infantry fighting vehicle transferred to Ukraine with a new version that is equipped with active protection systems. And as reported by the Program Executive Office Ground Combat Systems on Facebook, meaning that the future that I said was going to be probably a decade down the road literally just came today. So we were largely dead on the nail on this channel about reporting where the future of armored warfare was going to go, because it looks like it was actually just right around the corner, literally just about a few days away after we started saying it. Active protection systems are now going to be pretty commonplace on Bradley infantry fighting vehicles, most likely Abrams main battle tanks, and any other kind of armored vehicles, including MRAPs, Humvees, and the like, that will be used in the future by the armed forces. It is certainly the future of combat, I believe, in the future of armor protection, because it stops most projectiles from even hitting the tank in the first place for it to need armor. And then the armor is really just there to protect it from handheld anti-tank weapons and things along that nature. But that is still very interesting to hear, and I just wanted to point that out since so many people are always asking about the future of armor in the world and where it'll be heading. It appears that it's heading in the area of mass amounts of active protection systems and most likely blending in some electronic warfare elements with that as well with each vehicle. But that is incredible.
I wonder if the active protection is it lasers or is it something else? Do we know what type of actual protection it provides?
We assume that it will most likely be something like the trophy system, and I'll see if I can find one right here. The trophy system, which I've shown on this channel before, has a sensor that is mounted to the side of both sides of the turret, and it is able to detect any incoming targets, I believe, in like a 140-degree arc, so it almost gives complete protection to the sides of the vehicle, both the rear, the front, the left, and the right. Once it picks up an incoming target and it gets close enough, this little octagonal-shaped object here fires out a charge at whatever is coming at the tank, and the charge will end up disintegrating the round before it actually hits the tank. It is pretty much effective against anything fired at it. And let me see if I can go to YouTube and find us a clip really quickly of the trophy system in use. So let me type in trophy system.
Also, I find it kind of interesting that it took the United States this long to actually like equip these vehicles with that, because they already knew that the drones were a problem before we even sent the Bradleys. I mean, it's good we're putting it on there. I'm not complaining about that, but it seems kind of intriguing that they kind of waited this long.
It is really interesting to see that they did wait this long, but here's an example from the United Kingdom showing how the trophy system works, just to show y'all why the system is probably going to be the future of armor protection. So as we can see here, they fired an RPG, and it's fired, it appears at a side angle, so that way it doesn't directly hit the tank, but the theory is still the same. And you'll see that it got blown up right there in midair, like pretty much in literally a flash, it gets blown up. Boom, right there. So what happened is that the shape charge, well, not the shape charge, but the charge was fired from the trophy system at this RPG warhead, and watch as the pretty much, cloud of fragments hits the RPG and ends up disintegrating it right here. When you see it fire, there's the wave, and it hits the RPG and obliterates the thing before it even gets to the tank. So the armor is completely protected.
That's very cool. That's very effective, actually. I wonder if that system really costs a ton, really.
I'm not really sure how much it costs, but regardless of the cost, we do know that this will be, without a doubt, the future of armor protection, because it is the most effective thing to stop all incoming anti-tank guided missiles, all handheld anti-tank weapon systems, most likely other anti-tank rounds fired by other tanks, like armor-piercing, fin-stabilized, discarding Sabo. Although it may be a little less effective against that, because honestly, those things are going at such a high velocity, not only that, it is a raw tungsten or depleted uranium dart, that it would probably be pretty hard to disintegrate that, given the speed and also the kind of density of the metal that those rounds are made of. But nevertheless, this is once again showing that armored warfare is still going to exist in the future. It's just that the defensive mechanisms are now going to be moving beyond raw armor itself and maneuverability. It's now going to be moving into a brand new field, which is active protection systems, which are a lot like, in reality, the same thing that F-35s, F-22s, F-15s, F-16s, F-4 Phantoms, Su-27s, MiG-29s, Gripens, Eurofighters, Tornadoes, Lightnings, literally anything in the world that has been a jet aircraft, a multi-role aircraft, a fighter, a ground attack aircraft, or whatnot over the past 50 years, every single one of them has had a chaff and flare system built into the aircraft. And those are the aircraft equivalent of an active protection system, which is able to fire off flares and chaff to be able to try and ward off radar locks from radar-guided missiles. That's what chaff is. It's just a cloud of small little metal sheets that end up giving off a radar signature. And then flares are superheated pieces of material that are fired out of the back of the plane to give off a false heat signature. So going off all that, it appears that tanks are really just starting to pick up some kind of a system similar to that, that will start to stop rounds from even hitting the tanks in the first place. A lot like how those countermeasures for the planes are meant to stop the missiles from hitting the planes in the first place at all. But still, a very interesting...
Oh, and also, by the way, I saw DT in the live chat say, is Ukraine going to get this new tank? Well, it's really the Bradley. And the Bradleys were already going to Ukraine, but every single one that's going to be heading over there from this point forward, we're being told is going to have an active protection system on it, or at least most of them, I think. Hopefully all of them, but maybe most of them. But they're all going to be equipped with that, so it'll be able to fight off the drones a little bit better.
And that is going to be something that I believe, and I'll be honest, the reason why we're sending them over in the future with active protection systems built in is so that way we can see how effective they really are in combat conditions against the Russians, which will give us a really good idea of their combat effective against the Chinese as well. The truth is that they will be incredibly effective, because if you have a system that can stop an anti-tank guided missile from hitting your armored vehicle, it is pretty much indestructible at that point. In fact, if you have a system that can stop really anything from hitting the armored personnel carrier, it is practically indestructible as long as the trophy system is going to work. And of course, that I would have to say that's going to only last for so long. Someone will eventually find a way to trick the trophy system into not firing off a charge at whatever is coming in, and it will go through, but that's not for now. And so this system will probably be wildly effective on the battlefields of Ukraine. But moving on from that little bit of news from the United States about what will be changing with the Bradleys that are being sent over to Ukraine, it is now time for us to move back into Ukraine and on into the frontline news, which there is a lot of today, and specifically inside of our location unknowns. Starting off with our first clip, we actually got to see the Bradleys that are in Ukraine right now are having to fight that horrendous mud. And so here's the clip. We're going to be muting the Italian song that's playing in the background. And also, while we show this clip, Ukraine is most likely going... Well, really quickly, we'll just watch the clip and then I'll get back to that in a second, because there's no way to segue into that too well at this point. We can see here that they're pulling the Bradley out of the mud. This is, I gotta say, that mud in Ukraine is a huge issue. The mud in Ukraine seems to actually be very special as well. Like we know, Razbutitsa is mostly specific or really endemic to the entirety of Eastern Europe, meaning that armored warfare will always run into major issues with being bogged down like this when they're in this area. This isn't the same in Western Europe, from what we understand. While muddy conditions can prevail at certain times of the year, specifically inside of Belgium in the area of Flanders, we do understand that mud within the area of Western Europe, and at least the soil composition, doesn't allow for muddy soups to be created as often. So going off of that, this is something that the United States wouldn't have to worry about, but this is something that Ukraine would certainly have to worry about with where their Bradleys are being used inside of Eastern Europe. But beyond that, this is once again showing that there's a large amount of an issue with, well, really the maneuverability of armor overall, and that's kind of a little bit of a double-edged sword, because when you think about it, armor is required in the modern world, really, to survive. That's why we have MRAPs instead of Humvees, because that kind of an armor modification is really a necessity and needed to be able to keep the infantry alive. But at the same time, the heavier a vehicle gets, the worse it's going to get bogged down in this kind of mud, making it less mobile. So there's a really, really bad downside to having an increased amount of armor in Ukraine, is that vehicles are less mobile and may be easily destroyed. But at the same time, if you decrease the armor and increase the mobility in these kinds of terrain conditions, then it's more easily destroyable because it has less armor, although it has better mobility. So it's really a lose-lose in Ukraine as far as the terrain conditions go in parts of the year like now and in the late fall, but nevertheless, still showing some of the challenges, some of the huge challenges that have to be overcome in the Ukraine war, especially by the Ukrainians, and not only that, by the Russians. The Russians have never overcome it. The Ukrainians appear to try and overcome it, and it looks like we're going to help them out with that a lot by sending them a massive number of recovery vehicles. We'll probably see that the amount of combat engineer units in Ukraine is going to be exponentially increasing as these brand new recovery vehicles arrive, but at the same time, it's still a huge issue, and hopefully there will be some sort of a fix or something along those lines to this issue. But with that, we're now going to be moving on into our next bit of Location Unknown news, where we got to see that the Ukrainians are finally restoring their M777s in-house. This is something that's also really neat as well, because we've been able to see that the M777s have had to have been sent out of Ukraine and back into the United States to have repairs effected on them really throughout the entirety of the war. And some of the M777s, in smaller numbers that have been provided by other countries outside of Europe, have also had to go back to their countries of origin for repairs, which is a very lengthy process, and not only that, takes the guns out of action for an incredibly long time. It appears that Ukraine has finally been able to get some manufacturers or at least repair shops set up to where they can produce some of the replacement parts needed for the M777, or at least effect the proper repairs to be able to get these back into combat operation. This means that the attrition rate of the artillery due to wear down is greatly decreased because the turnaround time has been greatly increased. That almost sounded like something from a corporate, like a corporate conference, man. You're talking about like the effects of having repair stations nearby, but nevertheless, we can see
the missile knows where it is because it knows where it isn't.
Yeah, by knowing where it is at all times, it knows where it isn't. But still, really cool to see them conducting these kinds of repairs. And speaking of this kind of artillery, although this isn't really an artillery thing, we do know that Ukraine's strike on that Ryazan oil refinery ended up causing a decent amount of damage to the Russian Federation's oil production abilities again overnight, and will once again be posing them a bit of a tougher challenge, trying to make sure to keep up with the oil consumption, considering that there are already hundreds of thousands of barrels of oil, in a deficit of hundreds of thousands of barrels of oil per day. A lot of people are talking about, will the Russians survive that kind of an impact? Will they be able to find new oil? But once again, the thing with it, though, and this is something of a bit of, I guess you could say, terminology. It isn't oil that they're running out of. It's refined oil products that are usable, because you can't put crude oil in a tank, and you can't put crude oil in a jet aircraft. You have to be able to refine the oil into some kind of a usable fuel. So that's really the issue. So sorry about that, because we said they'll find new oil, but it's really about finding gas and diesel in big enough in amounts that they'll be able to keep themselves running. Some people think that Russia will be able to find new forms of gas to be able to use for their armed forces. Some people say it depends on Russia's allies wanting to provide them with the oils and fuels that they would need to be able to keep the war running. And then some people are saying that the Russians will most likely be left dry and end up just petering out by the end of the year due to depleted oil stocks. But everyone is saying, well, not oil stocks, gas stocks. I'm so sorry, everyone. That is so hard to keep getting right with the wordage, because it's not oil. The Russians are still producing at this moment an unbelievable amount of barrels of crude oil per day, but they're not able to produce any usable fuel products out of that at all. So that's kind of the issue. But still, Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
Okay, so on this poll, we said Ukraine conducted a strike on another Russian oil refinery near Moscow last night. And the question is, will Russia survive this? 37% said yes, Russia will find new gas. It looks like 31% said it depends 100% on Russia's allies. And 22% said Russia will be left dry of gas and oil. And on this one, I gotta say, at the rate that Ukraine is taking out and damaging these oil refineries, it sounds to me like Russia is going to have a serious crisis on their hands in the coming months. I don't see them dragging out air defense like they claimed they were going to do. They're not doing that. I don't see that anywhere. And also the little like homemade methods the Russians are trying to use to protect these facilities, it's really not working that well either. They're trying to shoot stuff with rifles. It's not working. And the drones always hit the refinery and destroy it. So to me, it's going to depend 100% on Russia's allies. Whether or not they're going to come in and bail Russia out and basically start feeding them gas and petroleum products, that is what completely depends on Russia's survival if Ukraine keeps this up. So I'm with the 31%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that, in my opinion, I would believe, and let me really quickly do some research here because I want to see how much information we can get. So, let's see here. Iran oil reserve. So apparently the Iranians produce 4.3 million barrels of crude oil per day, and they consume about 1.8 billion barrels of refined oil products every single day as well. So it's a pretty low amount of consumption per the amount of production. But we cannot find out how much refined fuel products they make in a day. We don't really know at this point, based off of what I'm finding online, whether the Iranians are just refining enough gasoline and diesel products to be able to keep Iran running, and then they ship off all the crude oil as crude oil to other countries and refine it, or if they're able to produce a larger amount of refined gasoline and diesel products to be able to keep their country running. And then also sell that off as excess. We don't really know if they're able to do that at the moment, but based off the amount, well, then again, I can't say that. I was going to say based off the amount of crude oil production per day, they should have plenty of excess refineries to be able to produce additional gasolines and diesels, but that's not the case because the Russians are in the exact same story. They produce an unbelievable amount of crude oil per day, but at the same time, they can't really refine any of that stuff either. So going off of that, maybe the Iranians are in a similar situation. Let me see how much oil can Iran refine per day? Maybe we can find an answer for that really quickly. And so, let's see here. National Iranian Oil Refinery and Distribution Company. Let's see here. Is this a nationalized company that is the only one in Iran? Let's see here. Let me look through. Let's see. Petroleum industry in Iran. Let's go just look at the Wikipedia on the petroleum industry, because the thing with oil consumption, production, and not only that consumption, it's all about really trying to figure out the numbers of how much people are consuming, how much a country is able to produce, how much surplus they would have. And right now, the Russians do not care, and this is why it's making it a little bit more difficult to factor this stuff in. The Russians do not care about buying raw crude oil. They have more than enough of it. They can't even export most of the crude oil that they're producing at this point. It is all about trying to get some kind of refined fuel product, gasoline and diesel that is actually usable. Because, yeah, they could buy all the crude oil they want, but they're in the same situation with crude oil they would buy from Iran that they would be with their own crude oil. They have no way to refine it into anything usable. So let's see if they have any information. Oh, look at this, Matthew. The era of nationalized oil. So I'm guessing that they do have a nationalized oil system right now, going off of that. So
That'd be about right.
let's see. Their crude has actually been dropping off a good bit lately. It looks like it's dropped almost 50% from around 2008 up until about 2020. So that is a fairly large drop, but let's see. Oil petrol. Oh my God. It's just going off of raw barrels of oil. It's not telling us how much of this is actually refined into a usable product. So let's see here. Let's see, the refining. Okay, here we go. So, as far as gas and oil goes, this is in millions of liters. Now we got a whole different. Let me go get liters to gallons. Hang on, everyone. Liters to gallons. Let me go and do this because this math is very important.
They don't make this easy. I can tell you that.
They're not making it easy. They're not making it easy at all. So let's see. They say the oil production increase. I don't. In this graph is a little bit hard to read because it says existing, expansion, and new. I don't know if the new means that that's existing now or whether they plan to build those in the future. Is there a better graph that they have on Wikipedia for this? Let's see here. Dang, they just don't make this crap easy, do they? We're going to have to try and figure this out. So let's just work off of what they had in 2012 as their existing oil refineries. They were able to produce around 78 million liters per day. So let's put in 78 million liters. And let me see here that I get this correct. And so we need to add one more zero. So they are able to produce, according to this, wait, hang on. Can we liters to barrels? We need barrels of oil. Barrels of oil, dagnabbit. We need the barrels. Barrels, here we go. So now we put this in 78 million, and let me make sure I got that correct. Okay, so this is very interesting. So we know that they consume 1.9 million barrels of oil per day in the Islamic Republic of Iran, according to the official public figures. As of 2012, the Iranians were only able to refine 490,605 barrels of oil per day, meaning that they're only able to cover 490,000 barrels of oil that they consume per day, meaning that they have to get about another 1.3 million barrels of oil outside of the country in terms of usable gasoline and diesel products. This means that the Iranians, going off of this, now that we've finally gotten down to the bottom of this live on air, the Iranians would most likely not be able to actually help out the Russians, because from what we can understand right now, there's no way in hell that they would be able to produce a surplus of refined diesel and gas products to be able to send to Russia. And on top of that, it appears that the situation in the Middle East is continuing to escalate, as Israel is now threatening a direct invasion of southern Lebanon, which would be threatening Hezbollah forces, which are, of course, an extension of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and the proxy forces that Iran supports in the region, and they may need that fuel to be able to conduct armed forces operations here within the foreseeable future. So going off of that, we know that the option that one of Russia's allies will give them the gas is most likely out of the picture, because Iran is really the only one we would believe at the moment that would have the ability to do that, and they clearly do not have the refining capacity based off of what we can find to be able to say, yes, they would be able to help out the Russians. So going off of that, I will have to stick with my original claim that the Russians probably have a ticking time bomb on the entirety of the Russian Federation, and their oil reserves will most likely run out by the later end of this year or into early next year if they're really able to stretch it due to some kind of public rationing program or something similar. They may be able to stretch those reserves on into early next year, maybe February and March, but it will not be an incredibly long time, and there's really no one out there at the moment that can help them. That's also why gas prices, if anyone's noticing here in America, are also rising here. Because the United States, much like everyone else, deals in raw crude oils, which they import and export, but we also purchase diesel and gas fuels, actual usable fuels straight off the market without any refining included, all the time. And because of that, and because of the rising prices, because Russia is starting to buy up almost all of the gas and diesel that Kazakhstan has to offer, amongst many other countries, the price is starting to rise. And that's something that we know. It's showing there isn't an ability out there to supply Russia's demand now that the refineries are getting knocked out, so they most likely will run out of oil by the later end of this year or into early next year. But still,
what about real quick, and not like a whole rabbit hole on it, but do we know if China develops enough oil, or not develops, but processes enough oil to give to Russia, or are they pretty low on that?
Let's see, Chinese oil industry. I believe the Chinese don't really produce a large amount of oil, so let's go to the petroleum industry. Let's see, Chinese oil production. They are up. Ooh, wow, that is really low. They only produce around 4 million barrels per day. Which is a very low amount, because we just looked at Iran. They're producing about 4.9 million barrels of crude oil per day. So the entire People's Republic of China produces about the same amount of oil that the Islamic Republic of Iran produces.
Okay, so China won't be coming to the rescue anytime soon either. So Russia may be just relying on that one country they're getting oil from already, and they might be out of luck outside of that.
Yeah, I think they're actually going to be in some serious trouble. And I'm trying to see. Sadly, there's not really a lot of information that I can find quickly on the Chinese oil industry, but from what I would assume, considering that the Chinese, and let me make sure to put this out there, their consumption rate, because the consumption rate is insane. Let me go over here, Chinese oil consumption. And so to put this out there, China consumes around 16.03 million barrels per day. Million per day. They produce around 4 million barrels per day. So, and then we don't even know how much they're able to refine per day, but it would have to be somewhere around maybe 10 to 12 million. So that means that most of their crude oil that they're turning into usable fuels, or most of their usable fuel at the end of the day, is most likely having to be imported as crude oil from foreign countries and then refined inside of China. And that is actually a really good thing, Matthew, when you look at this on a strategic level. the Russians and the Chinese right now are probably not that enthused about trying to conduct any further wars anywhere around the world, including in Taiwan, because if a war begins, the only one of the three powers that would have a usable domestic oil supply at the moment and would have the ability to refine it and create usable products out of it is the United States of America. Because the Chinese rely almost entirely on oil imports from what we can find. The Russians do not rely on oil imports, but they can't refine their fuels at the moment. So right now, going off of that, both China and Russia are at a severe disadvantage compared to the United States as far as strategic fuel reserves go. So that is a very good thing to know.
Wouldn't that be an intriguing turn of events if, like, everyone else started having problems with oil and the United States became basically the oil stable powerhouse? That would be a hell of a turn of events, because usually the Middle East is that. But if it went sideways, a war broke out or something like that, everybody would sort of be looking at the United States for a turn of events.
Well, you know what's crazy is that the United States of America is actually the largest oil producer and refiner in the world.
Yeah, what if Russia tries to start buying oil from us? You think we'd sell it to them?
No.
You know the way things work.
No, I think that was actually one of the first things we sanctioned in the beginning of the war, although we hardly were selling it to them at that point, was crude oil and refined fuel products. I think that was one of the first things we sanctioned. So I don't think we'd ever sell to them. Maybe... Well, actually, I'm doubting it. I don't think the Saudis would sell to them, because while they're a part of OPEC and they're both member states, that doesn't mean they would want to give the Russians oil, because we do have to remember Saudi Arabia is a Western-aligned country, and so they most likely would not end up selling oil to the Russian Federation, although they're both members of OPEC. So this has been a wildly interesting rabbit hole, I'm not going to lie. This would actually be a really good long-form documentary, Matthew, to talk about oil around the world and how it works. That would be really cool. I think we might actually start working on that in the background if we ever get the time.
It would be a very good documentary. And also, I know some people are like, why are you rabbit holing on oil? But right now, this is actually a very important topic, because Ukraine is hedging a pretty big bet on their ability to cripple Russian oil. They're believing, or at least what I think Ukraine's trying to do, is cripple Russia so bad on the petroleum front, and also gas and petroleum products and things like that, that the Russian economy eventually just collapses, and it causes some civil unrest in the country, and that'll obviously inhibit the ability to conduct war in Ukraine, because that has sort of like a trickle-down effect on the economy. So this is actually a very important topic, because if Russia is out of luck and they can't find oil or gas products from somewhere else, that could be pretty much the death knell to the Russian economy.
It really could be, quite honestly. And I would have to say, this is a very good turn of events. And also, once we've looked at the oil situation around the world, the Western world is actually in a great vantage position at the moment. But, you know, Matthew, no matter what, no one, not even the Russians and the Chinese, are as bad of a vantage position as the hot dog man and his 5 fans. There's just no comparison there.
No.
There's no way that you can get that low. I mean, almost down and out. Good luck paying for rent. But moving on from that, moving on from the whole oil talk, which was a very fun rabbit hole to go down. I hope all of y'all enjoyed it. And it looks like a lot of y'all did, actually, believe it or not. While some people were talking about it in the chat, Matthew, it seems like a lot of people have been joining us during the oil talks, because it's always interesting to hear about oil. Everyone loves oil. Most of y'all probably wouldn't even be able to get to work or live your daily lives if it wasn't for oil at the moment. So with that, we're now going to be moving on back into the location unknowns and on into our next bit, where we got to see the Russians using some smoke screens. And this was very interesting, because it's a specially made smoke machine, pretty much. So here's the clip.
Мое подразделение осуществляет аэрозольную маскировку выдвигающих подразделений при их развертывании в предбоевые и боевые порядки, то есть тем самым снижая...
So really quickly, I want y'all to know what this said. Командир тактической группы. So he's the commander of the tactical group. That's what that says.
То есть тем самым снижая вероятность их поражения огнем противника.
Just look at that. It's a literal moving smoke generator. Apparently they're using large numbers of these now to try and shield their advancing forces.
I think that's what Shoigu uses to blow smoke up above Putin's, you know what?
Aw, man. Hotbox it, baby. Aw,
yeah.
man. Waiter, another hit piece. But we can see the guy talking about how cool the smoke generators are.
что позволяет выполнять задачи на...
And I'll be
высоком
quite
уровне.
honest with y'all, we've never seen video evidence of these things actually being used on an active front. Just letting y'all know that. They're saying that they're used here on the Russian Federation's Armed Forces video, but we've never seen them used on the front lines legitimately. So, moving on from that, and moving out of this clip and on into our next one, we also got to see that we got to get the Russian casualty report over the past 24 hours, which was absolutely bussin'. Ooh!
Damn, they're losing not only the oil, but they're losing the manpower too. It looks like.
Man, they're losing the oil, and the Russians are beginning to boil. You know what I mean? 3 Bobcat skid steers were knocked out over the past 24 hours. Not only that, 1,120 Russian soldiers were also wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 5 armored personnel carriers destroyed, 33 supply trucks knocked out, 5 main battle tanks destroyed, 13 artillery pieces knocked out, 7 drones destroyed, and 1 anti-aircraft warfare system. Overall, the day has been incredibly good for Ukrainian forces. We've seen that the casualties that they've inflicted have probably been very high and probably very damaging to the Russian armed forces as they continue to try and push in the area of Avdiivka, although they are still taking incredibly high losses in that battlefield. Moving on from that and out of that area, it is now time for us to start moving on to the frontline situation, which we have a lot of news on today, and also some battlefield analysis and breakdowns in a couple of areas. But before we get to that, Matthew, I do understand that a lot of people have been talking about the new Bradleys that we'll be sending to Ukraine, the ones with the active protection systems, and how that might be a smart move to start outfitting all armored vehicles with those kinds of armor protection systems, or active protection systems. And Matthew, what are people saying about that, and what are you thinking about that?
Okay, so on this poll, we said the U.S. says that they will equip all new Bradleys to Ukraine with active protection for drones. And what are your thoughts? 74% said great news, the USA is being smart. 17% said it's about time, the USA is a bit late. And 3% said, who cares, it's happening now. And on this one, I will say that I think the timing was a little bit late on this because we've known for a long time that drones are a problem, and the drones obviously attack the equipment and knock it out, and that's one of the main ways Russia is using to knock out Ukrainian equipment when they rarely do that. So I would say the USA is simply being smart. I'm not going to complain too much about the timing because I guess the alternative is the United States could simply say we're not going to provide it at all. So I guess we should be grateful that they eventually gave it after all. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that it's great to know that they will be providing them. It would have been better that all of them would have been APS-equipped Bradleys, because that would certainly help out with reducing attrition rates due to enemy action. So going off of that, yeah, I'd have to say it's great to hear that they're going to be sent. It's a smart move, but I wish it had been done just a little bit sooner, because it certainly would have reduced a lot of the casualties of Bradleys that we have seen along the front lines in different conflicts, like the summer offensive of 2023 near to Robotny and the Battle of Avdiivka, where a decent amount of Bradleys have ended up being lost to enemy fire due to a lack of active protection systems. But still, it's great to know that they will be sent at this point, and I hope we were able to address that incredibly well. And before we move on into that frontline situation, let's make sure to get a couple of questions. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so our first question of the night is going to go to Walter A. Lakota Jr., the channel legend, who throws in a extremely generous $300 donation, helping out the channel in a big way, and I guess he's trying to buy some stock. But Walter says, aloha. Some stonks to the moon. Aloha, the Enforcer Matt, and LSA from OG Ellison Bosun. And it seems action across eastern Ukraine front lines is because a window is closing fast as U.S. aid is about to appear in 1 to 2 weeks, and Russia has to secure its holding or advance far. And maritime fact, sheer line is from the bow to the stern.
And I thank you so much for the really cool naval maritime fact, Walter E. Lakota, the OG Ellison Bosun. And thank you so much for sharing that incredibly cool fact. By the way, I just want y'all to know this, and I'm going to throw this out just for Walter E. Lakota. My favorite ship is, and let me show it right here. Hang on, here we go. Wait, I typed it in wrong. That's why I wasn't here. I was like, where the hell is it? Okay, so here we go. The RMS Teutonic. This is my favorite ship in the history of modern maritime history. I have no idea why, because there's a lot of ships that outdo it by massive leaps and bounds. But I think it's really cool because this was actually the ship, I believe, if I remember correctly, that really set White Star Line apart from its competitors and actually made it a rival in the North Atlantic passenger ship business, which is incredibly cool because this actually laid the groundwork for the eventuality of the Titanic, or really the Olympic class ships that ended up doing some fairly historic things. Most of them sinking, but fairly historic things nevertheless. Also, one thing that was really cool fact about the ship is that it ended up actually existing. It was still being used when the Titanic sank. And it was still conducting transatlantic voyages, I believe, at that time. So really cool when you think about that. And also, I just think it's a cool looking ship. But thank you for sharing that little fact about the shear line with us, because that is an incredibly cool maritime fact. And also, to address your assessment on the Eastern Front, I would have to say that that is certainly true. It does appear that that is the situation at the moment. The Russians are trying to advance not only to try and beat the American aid that will be arriving here in the near future. It will also be attempting to try and make some propaganda gains for the May 9th Victory Day parade that's coming around. The reason why I believe that this year, because usually I say that nothing revolves around holidays, this year there has to be something that they say during the Victory Day parade, which is about winning over fascism, where Putin can get up and say, the Russian army has done this, it has done that, and we have done it all in the defeat of fascism, just like our great-grandfathers did 70, 80 years ago. Something like that. That's what's going to be said. And when you think about that as well, that is certainly another motivator as to why they would be throwing bodies into the meat grinder, so that way just a good statement could be said on the May 9th Victory Day parade speech, so that way the Russian public may get a small propaganda boost. So going on with that, I would have to say that's probably another secondary reason as to why they're trying to race forward as quick as they can, forgetting the losses, forgetting everything else in between, because it seems as though they're trying to race forward for many different reasons. And we also got to see that damaged Abrams from Berdichi finally arrived at Moscow today, and they gave it the same barrel-bending treatment that they gave to the Leopard 2 to try and make it look more defeated when they put it on display for May 9th. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. But thank you so much once again for the unbelievable support, Walter A. Lakota. That is massive. I can't thank you enough for that. And honestly, this channel doesn't even deserve that kind of massive support. But we are entirely honored and appreciative that you will want to support this channel so much and help us to keep it running. Because folks like you help us to make it possible for us to do this as our full-time job and to be able to recover the news of this war on a daily basis. And so thank you massively once again, Walter E. Lakota, for being not only the LSA OG and, the OG LSM Bosun, which I just completely messed up the first time. Thank you also for being an absolute channel legend and helping us to make this channel possible. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Jenna, last name Tolls, who puts in a $100 donation. And huge shout out to you, Jenna, and thank you very much for that very generous support. They said, find some classical freeware music, pour a glass of wine, and show us that fat marmot cake.
Oh, yes. That juicy marmot cake. What are the charges? Eating a meal? A succulent marmot meal? But beyond that, let me go get that marmot and show y'all that cake. Because y'all know, ain't no cake better than marmot cake. Oh, hello there! Hey! It's the freaking marmot, baby! Oh, we love to see it. Look at that cake! Damn! That thing juicy. This thing is freaking caked up, bricked up even. And I gotta say, it is wonderful to see it. Oh, hello, Governor. Would you like a joke? That serves good enough, Governor. But beyond that, I hope that this does address your request incredibly well, because everyone knows that the marmot is an integral part of at least Spring Army jokes these days that just means so much to everyone. Matthew, does the marmot have anything to say from your end?
No.
Nothing at all?
No. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
What do you mean, Jack? It's got to say something. It's the freaking marmot, dagnammit. But beyond that, thank you so much for the unbelievable support, Genitals, and helping us to keep this thing running. And we would love to pull up some classical freeware music, but that may take time. And it's time that sadly would take too long on the stream. But still, thank you so much once again for that massive amount of support, Genitals, helping us to keep this thing running and making this channel possible, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here live on air right now, getting to joke around about some mammal, and not only that, getting to thank you so much for being here with us as we cover the news tonight, which is, it's crazy to think because it's day 798, we're only 2 days away from day 800, and we're all still here, and we're all still covering the news, and still supporting Ukraine, which is incredible to see. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the last question of this segment, and then we're going to be moving right on into the Ukraine frontline news.
All right, and this one is going to go to Evanescent Wave, who puts in a $20 donation. And huge shout out to Evanescent for that very generous support as well. And they said, do you think that the reason the Abrams were pulled off the line was so that they could be fitted with a trophy or similar system?
That may be the reason why, but from what I understand, the Ukrainians do not have any trophy systems at the moment. They may be putting them in reserve until America can provide them with trophy systems, and then they'll equip their tanks with those systems and then put them back forward. That may be what they're doing. Actually, that is probably exactly what they're doing. So I would say yes, that's probably what they've done. They're probably pulling them back, waiting for the trophy systems. They'll then equip the tanks with the trophy systems and then return them back to frontline service is probably what we will end up seeing. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Thank you so much once again for the incredible support and helping this channel to keep on rolling, and also getting an incredible question as well. And so with that, it is time for us to move on into the frontline news, into the area of Naholny, where we got to see that a Russian BMD was blown up. Check it out. We're going to be muting that, but we can see here the drone orbiting around this field. Almost looks like a field in Alabama, I'm not going to lie. And we can see the drone moving around just ever so slightly. And let's see.
Really sneaking and scooting.
And also, why in the world is the drone called Russo Riz XL? Like who came up with that name for the drone?
Oh goodness, because it's risen up those Ruskies. Oh dear.
Man, kill it, Rizzler, bled. But beyond that, this thing is burning up. Beautiful to see. And it says, Kvoit Shoti, Kochti, something, victory, support Ukraine, QR code. But with that, that's the end of the clip. Very nice to see the 5th Brigade doing its thing up there and knocking out Russian forces. Moving on from that and down into the area of the Kremenna Forest, we got a lot of news from down here. We got to see that the Russians were begging, literally begging for shotguns. Please help us, please. Here's the clip.
Нам с помповыми ружьями, гладкоствольные, дробовики. Пойдет любое говно. И пишите мне в личку. Я объясню, как все это затащить сюда, потому что эти птички, эти сраные FPV-дроны, они нас задолбали. Одно ружье — это 10 человеческих жизней, а то и больше. Они нас просто сжигают. Понимаете, что духа у всех хватает. Сейчас отдышусь. Духа биться у всех хватает. Но когда тебя сверху сжигает эта тварь, маленькое 40-тысячное дерьмо, и разрывает тебя на куски, приходится очень тяжело.
Well, let's see in the clip. It sounds like this guy is not having a fun time, and he's begging the Russian public to give him a shotgun. The Russian government will not give him a shotgun, and neither will the Russian public. This man will end up enjoying a nice, delicious drone meal. Provided by the Ukrainians, of course. Moving on from that bit of news and on to the next bit, we also got to see that a Russian tank got hit pretty hard today in the area. Here's the clip. When you see the drone flying in, we can see that it's got 2 syringes sticking out the front. We would assume that may be some form of an addiction, because the Russians seem to be addicted to these little drones. They love to receive them. And we can now see them coming in with the RPG. And just hovering over.
This is the equalizer, by the way.
Man, the equalizer T127E. We see here the drone is flying around trying to find its target. And we can see now coming in, hitting the side of that tank here in a second. Here it comes. Right at the back of the turret. With a bada boom. And that sends the ammo up immediately, causing an ammo cook-off that will continue to burn for quite some time. Isn't it toasty? It's so toasty. That's the end of that clip, but wonderful to see. Moving on from that clip and on to the next one, we also got to see a clip from the Foreign Legion fighters of Brazil that are still fighting on inside of the Severonsky Forest. Here's the clip. We got that Chad music playing in the background. We'll have to mute that, but we see him firing.
I thought that was a drone or something flying in. I didn't know that was music.
That counts as music on TikTok now. And by the way, rest in peace to TikTok. Gone and will be probably forgotten very quickly. But moving on from that and on into our next bit of news, we also got to hear that the Russians attempted an assault. Apparently that was removed. Aw, man. It sucks to see it because it was a really good clip. So we're going to move y'all a little bit behind the lines where we got to see near Severodonetsk an ammunition truck caught on fire today and started to burn very beautifully. It was a massive pyre on the road. Completely blocked the whole thing. Oh, Bliet. Oh, a little cook-off down there, Bliet. Nice and warm, Bliet. Nice and toasty.
Look at those people turning around. They said, oh, Bliat, maybe we have to go back the other way, Bliat. Is that a fuel truck sitting right there waiting?
Yes, Bliet. It wants to drive to flame.
He's trying to not let those unwanted urges cause him to press the accelerator and go right into the fire. I want to see this blow up, Bliat.
Man, Russian really are like mods, man. He's looking at that fire going, Bliat, I have to get closer. And then like the co-driver's like, no, Bliat, you will kill us all. And then he's like, I have to get closer. Just a little bit on the gas. No, I haven't, Bliat. No, he's like, I have to do it. And he like just floors it straight into the fire.
Even can you imagine the fireball that this will cause, Bliat? And they just get so mesmerized by the fire, Bliat.
This shit will be seen in Germany, Bliat. It will be huge. But also, by the way, just wanted to show this off as well because I thought this was kind of cool. An ATACMS attack happened today on a Russian training ground in the Luhansk region. I'll be showing you all this clip. This exquisite, fine clip. You see here the drone orbiting the field. And what y'all are seeing down there, those little dots that look like pieces of pepper on the land, those are actually a massive group of Russian soldiers that are about to get into parade formation for the morning roll call. It's very typical on Russian training bases to do that, even out in the middle of Ukraine. But we can see them eyeballing this little group. They're right down there, by the way. Right down there, I believe, if I'm correct. Now, let me make sure I'm correct. I'm sure it's about to impact here in a second, and we'll see them get obliterated. So we now see the drone zooming in. Yep, that's where they were. They're right near this little river. And there you go. You can see them a lot better now. Look, there they all are. Those are all Russian soldiers right there in this one big group. And any second now, things are going to go very badly. Very, very badly. Right now, while this video is being filmed, there's an ATACMS missile with a cluster munition flying right towards them. They don't know it. The Ukrainians know it, but the Russians don't know it. And they're all about to get the drop. Well, they're about to get dropped on. The Ukrainians are about to get the drop on them. They're about to get had. They're about to got. We see the drone just taking its time. It's still looking around the area. Also, that little river right there is really cute. I like that river. It's nice and scenic, you know?
Like the River Kwai.
A little smaller, but yeah. Yeah.
No, it's the River Kwai because that's where the Russians are about to go cry.
Ooh! That was good. That was good. Good way to recover, man. I like that. But we see the drone still looking around, showing us the surrounding landscape. And as this video is being filmed, I want to remind y'all, there is a ATACMS missile that has been aimed directly at these guys that is coming in right now. It's just that it has not hit yet, but it will hit here in a second.
Oh, this is a wing drone. This isn't a quadcopter.
Yeah, this is one of the actual fixed-wing drones that has the increased range, so that way they can get this far behind the lines and conduct the reconnaissance out here. And it's just a normal...
Also, by the way, I think the actual explosion is like pretty far down the video. I think this is like a 2 or 3 minute long video.
No, it's coming, Matthew. It's coming in about a minute. Be patient, Matthew. Be patient. It's a good payoff. 2 hours later. We're still here. But still, we can see the drone still orbiting. You can see the little training ground right down there. The Russians are still conducting their little formation. We're just going to skip forward like 20 or 30 seconds. It won't matter. And here in about 25 seconds, the ATACMS is going to hit. So let's give it the countdown. 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. We're going to have the impact right about now. Maybe not. For some reason, I was given a timestamp in the chat, and I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. Didn't impact then. But it's about to impact right about now. Any second now. Come on. There we go. There's the first impact. And here comes the second one, not before long. Any second now, bleed?
Oh, there it went.
Oh my god. Oh, dude, oh my god, dude. Look how big that cluster round was. Look, it covered the entire area from that lake to the river. Call that from the river to the sea. But we can see the cluster rounds blowing up all over the place. And I have a feeling that parade ground was obliterated.
The training just took a turn for the worst. Now they're not training standing up; they're training laying down.
I think the only thing that had the word "train" in it was the Ukrainian missile that was trained in on their position. I think that was the only thing training related in this entire clip. But that little parade ground was plastered. You can see the parade ground right here. And we can't even really make out any Russians that are left down there on the ground. So it looks like this entire training field got eliminated. We also got to see another cluster munition hit further up. We don't know what that one was targeting, but still, this was another major successful attack today conducted with ATACMS missiles. Moving on from that and down into the area of Popasna, we also got to see what I'm calling the Mr. S Lumberjack. Some people have been calling it the bonfire. I'm calling it the Lumberjack, because Paul Bunyan would be sad to see this. The guy who's even reporting when he saw this, man, he went, oh, listen.
Это боевая самоходка, похожая на избу на гусеницах, имеет, наверное, самую надежную защиту в своем классе. Броню экипаж дополнил деревянным срубом и сверху металлическую крышу возвели для максимальной уверенности.
That is horrific.
От FPV дронов. Они здесь запутываются и могут не сдетонировать. Транспортерная лента наверху от сбросов Баба-Яга, чтобы не уничтожил. Но это тоже от осколков, от прилетов, если рядом, и от FPV дронов.
Кассандра, так зовут орудие, опытная боевая.
Cassandra is going to get obliterated here soon, and it's going to look like it's an actual bonfire. Moving on from that and down into the area of Bakhmut, we also get to see near Klishkivka that the 93rd was holding the flank again today. Check out these pictures from the 93rd Kholodny Yar. They're doing incredibly well. Just look at them go. We love to see them. They're doing a great job. Moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see an FPV drone conducting a mission in the area. What a cool intro. Anyways, here comes the clip. There we go. This one's targeting a Russian supply truck. Oh, it's got a trailer on it or something, and... Oh, look at that Russian dude. He's like, oh, bleh. He's just looking at it. He's like, oh, shit, we're going to die, man. And the drone's like, you're right. You're absolutely right, comrade. He's like, oh, no, bleh. I hop away. I hop off the truck like Rambo, bled. I think he may have actually gotten in the way. But that dude took a leap. Look at that. A leap of faith right there. Wow. That was a leap.
And he waited almost too long, too. Like, he was hoping that thing was going to fly on by, but that was close.
Bling. Oh. Rip. But with that, that's the end of the clip. And moving on from that and a little bit farther down the line and into the area of Novokalinove, we also got to see a Bradley taking out an MTLB. And when I say take it out, this thing got greased. Here's the clip. So you see the MTLB moving around, of course, slamming the brakes. And now we can see the Bradley laying this thing out. Look at that. My God. That thing got shredded. And then it just started aimlessly wandering through the field because everyone inside was taking a nap. But moving on from that and into the next clip, we also got to see near to the area of Ultratine, or Ultratine, the Russian tank was knocked out today. Look at that, bled, like Mama's home cooking, bled. Whoosh. Cook up quite nice, bled. Another hit from another drone. Kabad bush. We see it again, bled.
I can just imagine when Ukraine finally gets all the vehicles with the active protection system on it, and then the Russian vehicles like this have no protection whatsoever. That's going to be a huge game changer for the Ukrainians, like no doubt about it.
Oh, it's going to be massive, really. I mean, it's going to be really nice to see. There will be such a huge disparity in armor protection on the front line at that point that the Ukrainians will certainly have the upper hand in any armor category that exists. But we can see that tank roasting up and burning really nicely. And with that, we're going to end the clip a little early because the rest of it just shows the tank continuing to burn. And moving on from that, and just north of Berdych, we also get to see the Russians getting hit by a drone up here. Once again by the 47th Brigade. Oh, that sounded like some Tarkov music. But that's fine, because they're about to get Tarkoved. That means they're about to be in an ultra-realistic hellhole. Check it out. They go into the house, and then the house goes away. Call that demolition. Call that a hometown makeover. But anyways, moving on from that and on into our next clip in the Avdiivka area, we also got to see that a little bit behind the lines, a Mi-24 of the Ukrainian Armed Forces conducted a rocket barrage today. We're going to have to mute that Sonse, you know what I mean? But we see the helicopter tilting up, firing off the rockets, and then turning hard left. We can see a second Mi-24 coming up and doing the same thing. And popping off its flares. We now see them leaving the area. How nice. We love to see it. Moving on from that clip, and on into our next one now of the Avdiivka area and into Staromykhalivka, we got to see a couple of knocked out T-62Ms. Observe. Electronic warfare systems on top of the cope cage. A huge cope cage. They're not barns or houses, but they are cope cages that are unbelievably huge, almost the size of a house. We also saw another one from the rear, and it appears that they covered it with anything they could, although the cope cage still didn't work. And then we got to see 3 of them here laid out in the field side by side. Once again, T-62Ms are becoming more and more common in the war as the Russians are running out of tanks, and we're starting to see these in incredibly large numbers throughout the entirety of the front line. And this is probably one of the largest concentrations that we've seen in recent times, with 3 of them being damaged and knocked out just near the area of Krasnoyarivka alone. Moving on from that and a little bit further down the lines and into the southern front, we also got to see today a fairly unknown defensive position. Actually, really quickly, before we get to that fairly unknown defensive position, I have to show you this wrecker yard that's filled with destroyed Russian equipment. Here is the clip. That's a lot of it.
Man, this is like a lot of spare parts potential for the Russians. Why'd they leave that behind?
Man, just because there's no spare part to be here, bled. Inside cooked, in and out, well done, bled. Chef's kiss, bled. But moving on from that, down to the area of Volnovakha, there's a very interesting defensive position that actually exists just behind the lines in this area of Ukraine. The Russians took thousands of railroad cars and ended up coupling them together for really, I believe it's a 200-mile-long train, pretty much, which is still shorter than the train that Chris's mom is in charge of, choo-choo. But moving on from that, nevertheless, Volnovakha is really the beginning of this defensive chain. And we got to see a Russian soldier filming it right here. Sorry, the defensive line is actually 30 kilometers long, not over 100 miles long. So this does in fact mean that the train that Chris's mom had is in fact longer than the one that we see here at Volnovakha.
Always good to film your logistics situation as a military. It's always good to do that. Publicize it widely.
Ишь, блядь, чё тут world, блядь?
И вот это вагоны, видите, они забиты, чтобы даже если вагон падает, он не может разъединиться. И вот именно тысячу, вот здесь точно на километр тянется эти вагоны. И более того, даже были случаи, когда вагон уже разрушен, у него выбиты колеса, а...
And with that, that's the end of the clip. But still, once again showing us that the Russians are trying everything they can to try and make defensive positions, but nevertheless, they appear to be lacking any kind of reality behind them. But moving on from that and down near to the area of Tarasivka and Verpove, we got to see a combat recon vehicle of the Russian army. Observe. Y'all already know what it is by looking at the back of this thing. It's a loaf, but here's the clip.
Oh my god. Man, that thing is built like hell.
Ничего, рули, не отвлекайся.
Does it even have suspension? My god. Look at that guy.
Dude. This guy.
That guy looks like he's been beat up.
This guy went from showing the inside of his loaf to literally being shit-faced. Like, it's like, oh my lord, what a transition here. Oh man, and the Bahanka doesn't even have brakes. That's what this guy is saying right here. Driving like this without brakes, damn it, it's effed up. It's what he said. Is he about to show a Rex Bahanka? Oh my god!
Oh, he flipped it. Oh my god, they're dragging it. Don't save that thing, let it die.
Oh my god. Dude, the first one they were in broke down, literally flipped, and somehow they survived. So what do? They go and get another identical Buhanka, hook it up to this one, and then start pulling it away. Oh my god.
Damn. You're gonna flip it again, man.
Oh my lord. Dude, that makes this clip at the beginning so much funnier knowing that they had no brakes and it's falling apart on film. You could hear everything in the vehicle like shaking apart. Let's watch this whole clip again in all of its glory, and I'm going to read the subtitles for y'all while it's happening. So, this is combat reconnaissance vehicle, damn it. No effing windows, damn it. It's okay. Keep driving. Don't get distracted.
He knows about Tony.
The good final words right there. And then it
He
goes
got distracted though.
It says don't get distracted, and then it immediately goes to him covered in shit. On the set at F. Driving like this without brakes, damn it. It's effed up.
What did he see to flip the thing? He must have been like, Baba Yaga Bliat.
Dude, he probably sat there and just saw a hallucination and flipped it.
But something like what the hell? Like you gotta like watch every single like steering movement in one of those things. Look at how like it's wobbling around, it's like barely like turning it right there. That thing is top heavy, like built terribly.
How much is a Buhanka here in America? UAZ 469 for sale. There's a UAZ market in America on classic.com. So let's see here. I'm seeing a lot of UAZ 469s. And I finally found our Buhankas. Buhankas are going, at this moment, for about 12,000 euros. So you can buy that piece of crap and drive it around for about 12,000 euros, which would be about 13 or 14,000 US dollars. Overall,
you'd have to pay me 12,000 euros to drive that thing. Like I'm not driving it,
dude. You would have to sentence me to death, and this would have to be my form of execution to drive this thing around. That would be my death penalty. This thing is not a drivable vehicle at all. But I wanted to make sure to give you all that little treat today because it was a funny clip. Moving on from that and down into the area of the Dnipro, or the left bank of the Dnipro, we also got to see that the Ukrainians were dropping some bombs onto the Russians. Check it out. Ooh, that sounds like it might be a little copyright. But
You know,
there's
something sounds too quality, you know it's got to be copyrighted.
oh, you know it. Someone out there is going, yeah, I get royalties. We're like, no, they're like, please don't. I beg of you. Oh, oh my. And
Juicy.
we see right there that squad. We can also see that Technica right there. That's a Bahanka. Another Bahanka. Ooh, those are the loafs, by the way. Some kind of a tent. And that's the end of the clip. But boy, howdy. Goodness gracious. Things are not going well for Russia anywhere along the front lines. But that brings us to some place where things are always going well. Kyiv, where we have the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 798 of the war. And so, without further ado, here is, oh, we were not blessed. Oh, no, we weren't blessed at all. We weren't blessed at all. No.
I wish you health, Ukrainians.
Why in the world is YouTube lagging so badly? Do you see how slow this thing is?
It's very slow. It's just what the hell is stable volume? I want that unstable volume, man. There's a checkbox for that.
I don't even want to try it. It doesn't even look like it's a usable feature, to be quite honest. But without further ado, here is the speech.
Speech!
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці, українки. Сьогодні день присвячений нашій міжнародній роботі, тим результатам, які потрібні Україні у травні та червні. Ми готуємо ще 7 нових безпекових документів для нашої держави, двосторонніх безпекових угод, в тому числі щодо безпекової угоди з Сполученими Штатами, зброя, фінанси, політична взаємодія. Сьогодні працював з командою щодо конкретних деталей цих документів. І по деяким з них вже є попередній текст угод. Кожна з них підтримує нас і цього року, і в наступні роки. Безпекова архітектура на час до вступу в НАТО. Наповнюємо драфти угод більш сильними можливостями для України та для нашої спільної безпеки з партнерами. Зрозуміло, що особливий пріоритет усьому, що дасть більше захисту від російського терору. Друге – європейський напрямок. Як і на кожному попередньому етапі інтеграції з Євросоюзом, багато залежить саме від нашої активності. Україна вже повністю реалізувала свою частину зобов'язань, щоб у цьому червні фактично розпочати переговори щодо вступу. Працюємо, щоб не було затримок чи непорозумінь зі сторони Євросоюзу. Всі деталі, всі кроки, всі аспекти комунікації готуємо разом з командою наших міжнародників. І я дякую кожному та кожній, хто допомагає. В цьому році ми маємо втримати ситуацію і досягти нових цілей по кожному зі стратегічних напрямків. Євросоюз – фактичний старт переговорів. Наше зближення – це один із таких напрямків. І, звичайно, глобальний саміт миру. Перший такий саміт, який здатен розпочати реальний рух до справедливого миру. Готуємо цей саміт і такий рух разом зі швейцарською стороною. Сьогодні узгодили фінальні штрихи, а також максимально активно працюємо для того, щоб на саміті було якнайбільше лідерів та країн. І це принципово. Світ може зупинити будь-якого агресора, якщо буде діяти у єдності та за правилами. Правилами більшості жодна агресія не витримає дійсно глобального тиску. І ми усі разом маємо примусити Росію до миру. Найближчими тижнями буде багато, в тому числі і непублічної роботи з партнерами, щоб саміт був дійсно наповненим. Ще дещо за цей день. Провів кілька кадрових замін Службі безпеки України. Також сьогодні хочу подякувати 9-му департаменту ГУР. Ваша влучність надихає. І наша Національна гвардія, усі, хто на передовій, усі, хто разом з іншими елементами Сил оборони та безпеки України з честю виконує бойові завдання. Дякую. особисто 3-й та 4-й бригадам оперативного призначення, воїнам Центру спецпризначення «Омега», 5-му окремому штурмовому загону та 6-му окремому загону. Дякую всім, хто б'ється заради України, хто посилює Україну, хто допомагає Україні наближати відновлення справедливості та миру. Слава Україні!
And the Rom
Slava.
Slava. And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky on day 798 of the war. And it's time for us to move on into the next segment of the stream, where we get to talk to each and every single one of y'all. I gotta say that it is an incredible time to get to share with the news with y'all, but it's an even more incredible time to get to sit down and talk to each and every one of y'all, because if y'all didn't know, the entire rest of the stream, I stand up, and then I sit down only for this segment. I'm kidding, I sit down for the whole thing. I don't know about Matthew, though, because he actually has a desk that can move up and down, so he might be
standing right now, actually.
Oh, dang, look at that. Isn't that cool? That's so freaking neat. But beyond that...
My desk just goes up and down the whole stream. I'm like standing up, sitting down, standing up, sitting down.
Man, it's like an emotional roller coaster, always going up and down. but anyways, with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And Matthew, if you could give us an update whenever the desk is moving up and down, I'd like to know. I think that'd be really cool. I'm just kidding.
We'll have to do that. But also, Enforcer, real quick, by the way, people want that UFO news. I think we missed it earlier.
Yes, we did miss it. The bonus news. Now that everyone has left because of the speech from Zelensky, now it is time for us to get on to all of the very diehard viewers who watch the after news segment, which is the news still. Because down here in the area of Eglin Air Force Base, which I'll have y'all know, we actually have been through Eglin Air Force Base a great many times in our life, believe it or not. We've been down here over in, well, actually, it's, let's see. It is over here. I was like, we are in the wrong place. This is not Eglin. This is Pensacola. This is Eglin. And this is also a training field as well, where they drop bombs and other fun things to try and see how things work. But beyond that, this is a very cool place because, primarily, this is where some of the things that the Air Force will test out flying go. And so we got to see something kind of cool today. Really cool, actually. It was something flying in the air. A picture was taken of it. We don't really know a lot about the craft. It's a unidentified flying object, though, and that's it. It looks to be almost a rhombus with a front nose cone and some sort of a rear section of the fuselage, and we can see what appears to be some kind of visible exhaust trail coming out of the back of the craft. We don't know exactly what it is. We actually did hypothesize that it may possibly be some kind of a ripoff of the Chinese FL-71 stealth drone, although we don't really know the size of this craft that we saw here in the picture. We don't know if it would have had the range, and this may possibly be some sort of a U.S. Air Force test of a new form of a drone or something else. We don't really know a lot about it, though, and speculation is running wild. But Matthew, what do you have?
So we do know a little bit about it. This photo was taken allegedly by a bystander, I believe from the highway. I believe that's where they took the photo. And the bystander claims this aircraft or this object was about the size roughly of a C-130 cargo plane. So not exactly small, but not exactly super large either, in my opinion. So I'm not really sure if it matches up with the dimensions of the FL-71 Chinese stealth drone, but some people were speculating that maybe this was either an experimental aircraft that was being launched from Eglin for testing of some sort, or maybe perhaps this was even some type of test vehicle that maybe the United States procured somehow through backdoor means of that actual Chinese aircraft to test it.
And really quickly, I'm trying to find some more information on this drone. So, actually, I would highly doubt, considering that they said it was the size of, a C-130, that this thing...
That's the bystander saying that, by the way, so take that with a grain of salt, because sometimes they're wrong. Because just from the photo, it doesn't look that large, but you really can't tell. There's nothing for reference points.
Also, I would have to say this can't be an FL-71 because here's one that's being displayed at an arms expo in 2018, and it appears that the wing profile is incredibly different. This one has far wider wingspans than the ones we see on the FL-71, because the FL-71's wing structure looks very similar to the dimensions that you would see on an F-22 Raptor. It doesn't look like this, because these wings are actually so long, you would assume that this thing would actually be for slower, high-altitude flight, to be entirely honest. Although the wings are still a little weirdly shaped even for that. So, I don't really know what this thing is. And of course, ideas could go wild. It is some sort of a most likely military aircraft that's in its prototype phase that's being tested. We probably have absolutely no knowledge about what this thing is. It probably hasn't even been unveiled to the public yet, but it is still a very interesting craft. Also, Enhanced said, I doubt it's the size of a C-130. I would highly doubt that as well, because the C-130 is not small. I mean, a C-130 is fairly big. I believe they're comparable in size to a Boeing 737. Luckily, they have a better flight record than the 737, but let me get you all the dimensions. So, the dimensions of a C-130 Hercules, it would be 98 feet long and a wingspan of about 133 feet for this thing to be the size of a C-130. I'm highly doubting that. What?
That's pretty big.
That's pretty big. That thing would be about as big as a B-2 Spirit if it was the same dimensions as a C-130. So I'm quite honestly doubting that. But I don't know what it is. I have no idea what it is.
You know, the only thing to me that's kind of curious, if this is something being tested by the U.S. military, why would they fly it at Eglin of all places? Because I was telling a viewer earlier today when I was discussing those, right now, a lot of people are going to the beach. And Eglin is on the way down to the beach, and that's where a lot of people are driving down the highway. Why would you fly an experimental craft that you don't really want people to see just yet, right next to such a busy highway where people can take a picture of it? Because this thing was flying so low that this person took a picture with their smartphone of it. That's what took this photo. Why would they not take it out to, for example, Edwards Air Force Base or somewhere out in the desert to go fly it instead of taking it out here where so many people could possibly see it?
Yeah, you would think they'd take it to somewhere like Groom Lake or something like that to test this thing, because it's an isolated location and that's the whole point of the facility. I don't know. It's a good question. And also, the shape is incredibly weird. Like, you know, the fuselage is almost non-existent on this thing, because we can see some kind of an exhaust trail right back here, an incredibly small one. So we do know that this is the fuselage. The fuselage is incredibly small. The wings are massive. And it's a very weird looking craft. I'm assuming it's most likely some kind of a drone. And also, some people in the chat are saying, you know, it's an alien. No, it's not an alien. It's not an alien. Aliens are not going to be flying around right over Eglin. They probably would fly somewhere, I don't know, like Russia, you know, where they actually observe freak shows, because they're probably more interested in that. But I don't know. I mean, this thing, it's probably a drone. It's probably some kind of a stealth drone that they're testing, something along those lines. But still, a pretty neat-looking craft, although we have absolutely no knowledge or no information about this thing. Maybe we'll get some here in maybe the next 2 years and be able to tell y'all a little bit more about what this thing was that we saw. But with that, hope that does address that the best we can, considering that we forgot about that before we got to the speech from Zelensky. But with that, now it is time for us to move on into the questions themselves. But Matthew, what are people saying about our latest question to all of them?
So on this poll question, it says the U.S. has banned the import of Russian uranium today, and the big question is the West still too dependent on adversaries? 62% said yes, the U.S. is way too dependent. 22% said we can be independent if needed, and 8% said no, the U.S. is self-sufficient. And based on what we're hearing here, it sounds like the U.S. was still buying uranium from Russia while all this stuff was going on with the war. So to me, it sounds like we probably are too dependent on Russia even at this point. And we've put a ton of sanctions on Russia, but yet we're still buying some of the stuff sort of quietly in the background. Also, China is not out of that picture either. We're still buying a ton of stuff from China. It's one of our huge trading partners, and they are actively helping out Russia, which is an adversary. They're threatening to invade Taiwan and other things of that nature. So, you know, to me, it seems like maybe we should be backing off of these adversaries, but, you know, it's really not happening that way. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that, in my opinion, we certainly need to be backing off of a lot of our adversaries and having any kind of dependence on them. I don't even know why we would be buying uranium from Russia, considering that Australia is one of the largest producers of uranium in the world, and they're one of our allies, so it would make a lot more sense to be able to buy the uranium from Australia if we wanted it. Another thing with China is that we do need to start waning increasingly faster on dependence with Chinese trade, because the Chinese are openly an adversary of the United States, a rival of the Western world, and we already know that a lot of American-aligned countries are starting to grow their own manufacturing industries. For example, Vietnam, the Philippines, Mexico, Thailand, and let me think of a couple of others. India is largely growing, although India is kind of a neutrally aligned country. It's starting to lean slightly westwards, but still fairly neutral aligned. There are a lot of different manufacturing countries that we could move that industry into and completely remove our reliance of any kind of major Chinese trade. So in my opinion, I think that would probably be a good step forward, is for them to do something along those lines. And also another thing, I saw Nova say the U.S. Should deal more with South America. I think so, especially considering that there is this huge project. I don't know if you've heard about this project, Matthew, but it's called the, I think it's like the Overland Highway Project. Have you heard about it, Matthew?
In South America, I've not heard of that.
Oh, why, this is an amazing rabbit hole. So, let me bring all of y'all up to speed. As of the past few years, droughts have been horrifically hitting the nation of Panama, and for that reason, the Gatun Lake and also the smaller Lake Alajuela has been running out of water in increasingly high rates. This means that the Panama Canal can not operate as much or as often as it would have in the past, and for that reason, Panamanian authorities are starting to decrease the amount of ships that can cross using the Panama Canal, meaning that many ships are forced either with an incredibly long wait time to pass through the canal, which is unprofitable, or to go with an equally unprofitable option of trying to sail all the way around South America to the other side and then to the other side of the United States. It is starting to cause a massive logistical bottleneck in several countries, including Uruguay, Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, Bolivia, and Chile, have all come up with an idea to start to try and really catch on to this huge trade crisis that is currently ongoing with Panama, and to try and shorten the, I guess you could say, trans-ocean route from the Pacific to the Atlantic. And that is with a superhighway project that'll exist all the way from the port, I believe, of Curitiba, all the way over, I think, to Antofagasta, or some sort of a port along that area. This highway will span all the way across the area of central South America, and will be able to help greatly reduce the load of goods that have to go through Panama, and also at the same time greatly decrease the travel routes that merchant vessels have to take to get the cargo from one place to the other. So there'll be a major port on the western coast of South America, and then there will be a major port as well on the eastern coast of South America. Ships will drop off the cargo in one port or the other, and the massive highway that's going to be built is going to be, of course, employed mostly by the countries there, which will be a huge economic motivator, and then they'll continue to get a return investment off of the companies that are going to be contracted at that point, the trucking companies, to take all of the cargo from one port and the other and send them to the other one across the country. It's going to massively boost the economy in this region, make loads of money, and considering that it doesn't appear that the situation with the Panama Canal is going to be improving in the future, this is going to be a permanent change in how trade routes work around the world, meaning that all of these countries are going to be getting a huge economic boom here in the future that would have never been expected. That means that America does have a prime opportunity, not only because these are going to be major trade networks and trade hubs in the future to get in on that trade, but to also try and get the manufacturing moved down to these countries, considering that they'll be finding newfound wealth here soon, and that also means that they'll be bringing more economic activity to their countries in other forms to continue to try and grow their GDP and their marketability worldwide. But that's kind of the situation that's going on in Central South America at the moment.
Interesting. I didn't know any of that, actually. I'll be honest with you. I really don't follow the news out of South America very much. So pretty much anything's going to be news to me.
Well, South America is really going to start being a very interesting place going on in the future, because no one looks at South America. The honest reality is things that happen in South America can stay in South America, and no one will really care around the world. It's kind of similar with how things can happen in Africa, and no one really cares because, you know, there's just not a lot going on there strategically, a lot like South America. But as this superhighway project gets built, South America is really going to start showing up on the world radar. You're going to see that the Chinese start trying to get heavily involved in this region. We're going to be getting heavily involved in this region, and we're going to start seeing that actually significant and large, I guess you could say, sphere of influence struggles are going to start happening in that region. And so that's going to be a fairly interesting change in the future, but still a really cool one, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen down there because of this, and how this is going to change trade routes around the world forever. Because if you can get this massive trade highway here going in South America, it is going to be a real big change because the Panama Canal has been the uncontested champ of transocean trade. You just move straight from the Pacific to the Atlantic through the canal. There's been no other competitor. But now that the droughts are beginning, they now have to come up with alternatives, and so they have to go with this one, the land highway. And also what's interesting about that is, from what we understand, the Panama Canal is going to be affected permanently, at least according to what scientific reports are finding right now, because of changing climate conditions in the Pacific are producing more and more drought seasons inside of Panama, while they're also producing much more rainy seasons within the area of the Western Pacific. So it looks like this is going to be a permanent thing that'll probably last for decades. And, some people are going to say, oh, this happens every once in a while. I will have y'all know that the Panama Canal has never had to reduce the amount of traffic that passes through the canal since it opened. In fact, for a short while, they actually completely shut down the canal because there just was not enough water to be able to operate it. That was the first time in history since it had opened over the course of, I think, 112 years that the canal ever shut down. Up until that point, it had run perfectly fine. So this is a fairly concerning thing that's happening, and of course, that's now going to be the alternative in Central South America. But with that, I hope that does address that well, at least the best I can, because I think that we do need to start moving our trade to other countries, and South American countries, Central American countries, and Southeast Asian countries are probably the best bets at the moment to move the trade, because it's never going to return to America. That's a rabbit hole of its own. But those are great places to move the trade, and not only that, that is going to make sure that we keep the Western sphere self-sufficient instead of having to trade with our adversaries. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and also real quick, I put up one more poll because there's a little bit of news here that's sort of flying under the radar that's really not being picked up really heavily by mainstream news or actually even the OSINT reporters, and it's coming out of China. And the poll question says, Taiwan warns the West about upcoming Chinese military drills this month and potential invasion threats, and what are your thoughts? 57% said China is getting very aggressive, 29% said it's just the usual provocations, 8% said China is never going to invade. And in my opinion, I think China will eventually invade Taiwan. I don't think it's going to happen probably this year. It's probably going to be a couple years down the road, in my opinion, and also other military experts seem to think that as well. So I would tend to agree with the experts on that for once. But I will say that China is getting very aggressive, not only with Taiwan, but we're seeing even BBC reporters who are getting on boats down there in the South China Sea. And these Chinese Coast Guard vessels are ramming into the side of Philippine vessels. They're using their water cannons to destroy GPS and all the equipment on the boats. And they're doing this all the time, basically blockading the area off to fishermen in the South China Sea. So China is getting very aggressive about that. And it seems like that could boil over to a all-out conflict. And it seems like it's been like that for a while, but it's really getting worse at this point. So, to me, between China supporting Russia and also what they're doing in the South China Sea and also Taiwan, China is definitely ramping things up here. And I think it's going to be popping up in the news a little bit more in the coming weeks. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say they're getting more aggressive, but it's not anything that's extremely aggressive. The Chinese have conducted multiple war games over the course of the war in Ukraine, and none of them have led to invasion. There's no reason to believe they would invade at the moment because the Chinese Navy would not be able to support a large land force invading Taiwan at the moment. So going off of that, I would have to highly doubt that it would be happening now. It's probably going to happen in several years, but the Chinese are getting more and more aggressive as we continue to try and make sure that they stay contained and that their ideas of a larger Chinese sphere of influence don't ever realize. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And I also saw someone say, why doesn't the United States or Costa Rica build some kind of a land corridor like that? I don't really know why. None of them are really wanting to catch on to that. Maybe it's because Costa Rica doesn't have the economy or even the willpower to follow through with something like that. Maybe that's the reason why. You would think, to be quite honest, you would think that Panama would be one of the countries to try and pick up on this, where they would build a massive port structure in Colón, and they would also build a massive port structure in Panama City, and then just use the pre-existing highway they have to transport the cargo from one side to the other. It removes the need for the canal, but it also keeps the nation of Panama in on the major trade business, and trade is a never-ending moneymaker, and it's one that you want to stay in, because if the Panama Canal continues to become unusable, Panama is going to start dropping drastically in its economic activity, its quality of life, and everything else. So they really need to try and find a way to deal with that. And also, I saw some people asking some questions about this in the chat. Someone said, can they get water for the canal without using the lakes? No. The lakes are the only thing that exist, and the Panama Canal was designed to work off of the lakes that existed in the area. That's why the canal project, a lot of people think, wow, we like cut all the way through Panama. We really didn't. We kind of just cut up into, and you'll see right here, you can see the lock systems here, and then we built these larger areas here in between the lakes. But then we created this actual large canal here, which then just feeds into Gatun Lake. Then the ships travel through the lake that already existed there, and then they come to the other part of the canal that we built right over here, and then they go shooting straight out into the sea. So there's actually not a lot of the canal per se. It's more so a lake with small lock structures that were built on the sides. And it was made to work off the lake. So when these locks fill with water, there's nowhere else it can come from but the lake. And so every time a ship enters or exits the lock system altogether, this lake is losing water. And as it continues to lose water every year, the hope was, and this is how it's worked for 112 years, the hope is that the El Nina, I believe it is, would bring in the rainwater, would fill up the reservoir again through the rainy season, and then would be able to function perfectly fine without even getting dangerously low or even close to low for the remainder of that year, and then would get refilled again by the rainwater. Now that's not the case, and there is really no way to fix the Panama Canal because the entire thing was built off of that principle, so there's not really a way to fix it. But still...
Just going down.
What?
Dusk going down.
Oh, I was like, huh? I was like, that was the most random thing. I was like, what the hell? But still, with that, I hope that does address that well. You know, I wish we could actually go into some really cool videos with y'all, because I'd love to talk about the whole Panama Canal thing, the Trans-American Highway that's going to be existing down in South Central America, and all kinds of other cool stuff with y'all, because it's all so interesting. It's really neat stuff. And I wish we could actually spend more time talking about it and rabbit holing on it, because these are the things that I always look at whenever I'm not running this channel and focusing on world news. I always look at these big major current event things that are happening. But still, with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well, and I thank everyone for listening to that second rabbit hole on that. But with that, we are moving on into the questions themselves. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so jumping back into our Super Chat questions, we have one from Jamie Winthrop, who puts in a $50 donation. Hey! Thank you very much, Jamie, for that very generous support, in 50 Canadian. He says, lads, great work as always, and cheers from Victoria, BC, Canada, and keep it up, and thanks for all you do, and Slav Ukraine, and cheers, GHW.
Hey! And thank you so much for the support all the way from Victoria on Vancouver Island in British Columbia. How cool is that? You're actually on the island. What does this place look like? I'm very interested. Oh, looks like America.
Oh, look at that.
Look at that.
It looks like America.
Pacer?
Maybe. Could be. Maybe. Possibly.
Perhaps.
When you said America just then, it made me think of, what's his name? R. Kelly. When he was singing, would you like to go back to America? Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen that.
Oh, it was so creepy. I didn't even want to go into it, man. But it's just like, it's so creepy. You have to pull it up sometime. He was singing. He was basically asking people, "Do you want to go back to America with me?" To the women.
What?
Yeah, like you had to pull it up, man. It's rough.
Well, anyways, we got a Dollarama over here. We got a Dollarama and we got a Pennington's over here. Yeah, those are cool, right, Matthew? I mean, a lot better than R. Kelly.
What the hell's on the billboard on Pennington's though, man? You got something that's just as bad as R. Kelly. What's going on?
Do you want to come to America? But anyways.
America?
I'm gonna piss on it. But anyway.
Whoa, Jack.
Whoa, Jack. Whoa. But beyond that, not a bad looking place. I like this place, and I like Strawberry Vale. That's a cool name. It's a veil made of strawberries. How nice is that? But beyond that, thank you so much, James Winthrop, for greatly enjoying what we do and finding it worthwhile to support, because we love running this show. It's something that I'm so happy we get to do. there are many other things that we could have ended up doing. We could have ended up becoming attorneys. We could have ended up, I don't know, becoming attorneys. Or we could have run a YouTube channel. And we ended up running a YouTube channel. And I got to say that this was a lot better of a thing to do than becoming an attorney, because that looks like that life is kind of hell. No disrespect to anyone who has been an attorney in our chat, but I actually hated law school, so I knew that I was really going to be hating actually trying to be an attorney. And then, and then it seems like everyone who is an attorney that at least we knew hated their job. And so we were like, let's bail while we can. And so we bailed out, and now we're all good up in the hood. You know what I mean? I'm happy for it, and I love to do this. And I also got to thank you so much for wanting us to keep it up. We are always going to be keeping this up until the war ends, and even then we're going to keep on keeping on with this channel, covering everything that we can around the world, breaking news, major events, all that kind of fun stuff, and just keeping it going. And I got to thank you so much for enjoying everything we do, and of course, Slava Ukraini! And cheers to you, and thank you so much once again for that incredible support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one's going to go to Neil Vizanant, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Neil, for your support as well.
Hey!
He says, for the future of armored vehicles, I see heavy armored IFVs with a crap ton of weapons and active protection. And for reference, the A6 Juggernaut from Star Wars. And I promise something like that is in less than 10 years away.
A6 Juggernaut. Maybe? I would say armored personnel carriers are never going to get huge because armored personnel carriers generally are already as big as they would get right now. The general premise of an armored personnel carrier is to keep it kind of small, where it can carry the troops, but it really can't do more than that. So this thing looks like it would be a little bit too big, and I'll try and put a picture of this thing on screen right here, and this is it. So this is the thing. I'm doubting that they will turn into that in the future, because they would be massive bulking targets to be hit and destroyed. So they'll most likely want to keep them fairly small. We even know now that moving on into the future, they're still trying to make all vehicles a little bit smaller and resource efficient. And I feel like this wouldn't really be that direction, but maybe it will happen in some instances. It's just that usually supersized vehicles always end up being liabilities in big targets. Not only that, with vehicles this big, how would you transport one on the railroads, moving it from place to place? You wouldn't be able to. You'd have to drive it everywhere, which really increases the maintenance and also decreases the efficiency of using these kinds of vehicles. But overall, a pretty interesting concept. But I think what armored warfare is going to look like in the future is probably not going to look that different from what it is now. It's just there's going to be a lot more active protection systems involved in protecting the vehicles. But still, thank you so much once again for that incredible support and helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you help to make it possible, and I hope I was able to address that fairly well. It may happen, but I feel like we'll probably see the tanks that are in service now still in service in 10 years, just with a lot more protection systems. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Clyde, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Clyde, for that support.
Hey!
He says, thank you for all the accurate reporting.
And thank you so much for enjoying all of this accurate reporting, Clyde. And thank you for really finding it to be accurate. We try and make it as accurate as possible, trying to show everything that's going on around the world and make sure those stories are well researched with video and picture evidence to back them up. And I got to thank you so much for enjoying it and wanting us to keep it up, because it's a lot, actually, to keep this up. It's so much that we rarely ever have time to do anything additional or extra in the day. Running the merch store is actually a huge add-on, and luckily we've been able to figure out how to start fitting that in. But now we have to try and figure out how to fit in other stuff, which is going to be really difficult, but it will be a challenge we'll be more than happy to face. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are going to be moving on to the next, but thank you so much once again for the kind words.
Yes, indeed. And our next one here is going to go to Heather Fitzgibbon, LSA, who puts in a $10 donation. And I'm looking here, it looks like two $10 donations from Heather Fitzgibbon. And I don't see any comment attached to them. And thank you very much, Heather. Thank you very much. I was going back to check because I was like, what? No comment. But there's no comment here. But thank you very much for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank you so much, Heather Fitzgibbon, for the 2 super chats that you sent in, which helped this channel to keep running. I say that so much, but they really do. And we want each and every one of y'all to know that we appreciate every single bit of support that y'all give, because it helps us to be able to do this as a job and keep this thing rolling. If it wasn't for folks like y'all, we wouldn't be able to do this as a living. And I greatly appreciate that, and thank you so much, Heather Fitzgibbon, for helping out this channel and making this thing a reality. I also thank you for being an old guard as well, having been here since the dawn of the channel. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Khan, who puts in a $10 donation.
Hey!
And thank you very much, Khan, for that support. He says, Putin, my old friend. What? He said, are you aware of this ancient Ukrainian proverb that revang is a dish served best cold? It is very cold in Ukraine. Khan.
Or whatever he did in the movie. But beyond that, Matthew, that is actually, believe it or not, an ancient Star Trek proverb from Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. That actually comes from the movie. I'm not even kidding. The Adventures of the Dish Best Served Cold. That's what Khan said to Kirk when he almost started obliterating the Enterprise, not the Enterprise. But beyond that, that is a very interesting thing to share with us, Khan. And I do have to say that you're a very wise person, wise beyond your years even. Because apparently the eugenics wars have already happened according to Star Trek timeline, because they happened in the 90s. So now we're apparently the byproducts of genetic mutant freaks like yourself. But still, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running and making this channel possible, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here right now talking about how you used quotes from Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, real quick, I see Notorious GRG. He said in the chat, he said, would it not be wise after you mentioning the USA being the only world power with refining capabilities, or at least good ones, to start protecting our refineries? And I'm not an expert on it. I'm not going to claim to be or pretend to be. But our refineries are actually pretty decently protected. Obviously, they don't have air defense around them, because I don't think anyone can pretty much strike us with an air weapon right now at this point. But we do have ways to keep infiltrators out. And I know that the oil companies do occasionally hire pen testers to go to these facilities and try to break into them, so that way they can try to shore them up with more security measures. So they're not totally like wide open. You can't just walk up into an oil refinery and start walking around the place. At least that's in theory you can't. But there are other pretty critical infrastructure places in the United States, even here in Alabama, that don't have good security, which are probably a lot more dangerous than an oil refinery being blown up. But Enforcer, do you want to add anything to it?
Yes, I would have to say, brilliant question. And Matthew is right. It's actually really hard to get into an oil refinery. And I'll show y'all probably one of the largest ones that's near to us, which is in Baton Rouge, which is the capital of Louisiana, and also has, I believe, the second largest oil refinery in the entire United States, right here. This thing is huge. Like, when you actually drive through it, it's unbelievably huge. Let me see if I can actually drop y'all down here. Wait a minute. They didn't let the street view thing in here? Come on. Oh, wait,
good security already.
Look at that. Good security. There it is right there. Let me drop y'all somewhere near it. Like right here. So there's the refinery over here. This one's owned by ExxonMobil. I could tell y'all that because I saw it on the side of the silo. But beyond that, it's huge. This thing is actually one of the biggest ones in the country. And from what I understand, it has incredibly good security. But I think what they were talking about, Matthew, is more so air defense security. And you touched on it a little bit.
Oh.
No one really has the ability to reach the United States at the moment and fire any kind of missiles at our refineries for us to really worry about that in the first place. But if they were, there isn't really no air defense around these refineries. I think that's something that the United States would probably concern itself with, say, when a war broke out. We would probably start to move Patriot batteries around some of the major cities where these refineries are, like Baton Rouge. And let me check something really quickly, because I'm actually very curious about this. Do we have any refineries in Mobile? Actually, we do. We actually have a small one right here. This is the Vertex Energy Mobile refinery, which is an incredibly small one, but still, it's a refinery. We would probably put air defense around a large part of the United States, Patriot batteries, things like that, in NASAMS. to try and protect these sensitive areas and make sure that our oil refining abilities weren't stricken and blown up. If the Russians did something like the Russians or the Chinese actually ended up attacking any of these refineries and successfully knocking them out, we would probably start to do the same thing in turn to their oil refineries, destroying theirs and knocking theirs out. Also, another thing is that the Chinese don't really produce a large amount of their own usable oil. And I also want to put this out to y'all. One second. How much oil does China refine? Let's see. Crude oil processing or refinery runs in China averaged 14.8 million barrels per day in 2023. So China refines 14.8 million barrels of oil in their country, and they only produce around 4.5 million barrels of oil per day. So that means that they're getting about 10.3 million barrels of oil per day from outside of China. The United States, and let me make sure, U.S. oil production. Let's see, we produce, let's see, hang on, let me look at this. Wait a minute, this can't be right. This is crazy even. One second, let me make sure that I'm getting this right. All right, so, yes, oil production by country, the United States. I'm actually going to show y'all an interesting little graph. It's a wildly interesting graph because it shows an interesting trend. I don't really know how to put this. I'm kind of even scared to show this because it seems as though people have a certain kind of a belief when it comes to oil, and it's kind of actually a little bit of a political thing in this country. But I'm going to show y'all this graph because this is a very, very interesting one, because you can see here that oil production started to massively skyrocket from January of 2017 up until about 2020, the very beginning of 2020, and then it went almost straight through the floor. But from that point onwards, we now see that oil production in America has actually reached even higher than it did at its peak in late 2019 here in the United States, meaning that we're now producing more oil per day here in America now than we have at any other point in history. So that is something that is very interesting, Matthew. Very, very interesting. I can't say much more than that. I think you get what I'm getting at here, though.
Yes, I do.
And so that is incredibly interesting to see. But getting back to the point, the United States produces about 13.5 million barrels of oil per day. No one gets close. Let me see if I can actually get oil production per country. Oil production per country. And so let's see here. Yes.
Also, by the way, when you get done with the numbers on that, I have some information about U.S. Oil refinery security measures as well.
Oh, nice. Cool. Let me make sure we'll get through this and then we'll get to the oil security. The United States, as of December of 2023, was producing 13.3 billion barrels of oil per day. That is not million. That is, hang on. No, sorry, it's not. It's just barrels per day. It's million. So it's 13.3 million barrels of oil per day. The Russians were second at 10.1. The Saudis were third at 8.9. The Canadians were fourth at 4.5, really. The Iraqis were fifth at 4.3. The Chinese were sixth at 4.1. The Iranians were seventh at 4. The Brazilians were eighth at 3.5. And then you can see that from there, the numbers of oil production become negligible. But what's really interesting about this is that the United States produces the largest amount of oil per country in the world, and we consume 20.6 million barrels a day. Meaning that even at the highest oil production numbers in the United States, seen in the world, seen in history in this country, we still don't get close to producing the amount of oil that we consume per day. The Chinese are way far behind because they actually consume an even larger amount. They consume something like I think it's like 16 million barrels of oil per day, 17, something like that. And they only produce around 14.8 million barrels per day inside of their country. The U.S., however, let me put this out. The U.S. produces 17.9 million barrels of oil per day in this country as a refined fuel product. So we actually have a greater ability to sustain ourselves in a conflict than the Chinese or the Russians would by refining ability. But after going through that massive breakdown on the oil figures, I believe Matthew has something to share with us about oil refinery security. So Matthew, What did you find?
All right, so I did find some more information about what type of measures are taken in the United States in particular to protect our oil refining facilities. But real quick, I just saw an article from 2021 here. This tells you how often experts are wrong on things. One of the experts, which I won't name because I think they're a little bit political, they said that oil refineries are not national security assets, and they said it in bold with exclamation points behind it.
That's stupid.
Absolutely wrong. That is very stupid, and that person, who's actually pretty well known, was wrong once again.
Send their name.
But anyway.
Send their name to me over text.
Okay, let me send it. Let's see.
Also, I saw something interesting, Matthew. I showed the oil production numbers from 2017 to now, and then someone said, "Well, that's because of evil so-and-so." I don't think you realize, like, I don't think you realize, but both, and I'm not going to get any further than this, both of them are producing the largest amounts of oil that has ever been seen in national history. It's not one side or the other; it's both, and that's kind of what I was trying to point out without saying it. But like I knew, some people are a little too politically minded to see that and go, wow, everyone did the same thing, to see through that. So then people just started attacking each other. So that's why I couldn't really touch on it more than that. Yeah.
So back to the point here real quick on the security for the oil refineries. It looks like the majority of security in the U.S. Is basically the large fences that you see in the gates. They have a huge camera network on these places, like huge CCTV network, and they also have a very complex alarm systems along the gates and also at the fences as well. Also, it looks like a lot of refineries actually hire private security that are armed to actually roam around the plant to secure it. And like I said before, they do hire pen testing companies, which send out guys to basically find ways to break in and find vulnerabilities in the plant, so that way they can shore up the perimeter as well. So that's pretty much the extent of it. And like the enforcer was saying, the only real way to get into one of those refineries right now for an enemy is to basically send in an infiltrator, someone to basically social engineer their way into the place and then do something like a cyber attack. That's pretty much the only real way to do anything right now, because nobody can launch a missile in there. It's a domestic United States. There's nobody close enough to do that. But pretty decent security for our needs.
But what dumb idiot, like I don't mean to come in that strongly, but what dumb idiot says that oil refineries aren't a national, like a national security concern? That is the way we fuel this country on a daily basis. Why wouldn't that be a national security concern? We see in the war in Ukraine, it is one of the most important factors in national security with what's happening to the Russians. That guy's stupid. I'm not going to lie.
No. You're wrong. Oil refineries are not national security assets. They're strategic assets.
What is?
That's what you call getting That's what you call getting missing the forest for the trees. That's what you call that.
I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this as well. Newport News is no vital asset of the United States. And it's just a place where we put our big boats.
That would be so stupid to say, dude. That kind of crap actually pisses me off when I hear stupid hot takes like that. It's like, yes, it's a national security concern. It's an oil refinery. That's like saying nuclear reactors aren't a national security concern. It's like, yes, it is. This is a national security concern. If it blew up, it's going to cause a problem. You gotta fix that. If you read, and I'm gonna say the things that I know that I can say. If you read the federal safety reports that are put out by our atomic agencies here in the United States, this nuclear reactor in particular, or this nuclear power plant, has a massive underlying fault that the federal government knows about and has let the TVA know, and they don't tend to it at all. And also Matthew's saying, "Oh, careful," and we're not defaming anyone, but we're saying what the federal report said. The reactors are poorly protected because the roof, from what I understand from the federal reports that have been put out about this plant, is made up of really structural aluminum and really tin. And for that reason, if there was, say, a drone attack that ended up hitting this power plant, that would actually be its Achilles heel, and no one's fixing it. It just still is there. They're doing their thing. They're running the power plant, but there's really no security improvements that have been made. We have heard lately, though, and this is a step in the right direction, that there has been a drone no-fly zone that actually extends over the entire property of this nuclear reactor site. which is a great step in the right direction. But there needs to be more security improvements made, because this could become a national security risk, and it could be a national security risk in any instance at all. So going off of that, I hope that does address that well, because national security, when we're talking about the future of warfare, is a very important thing that always has to be addressed. In a normal situation, things like improving the security or the safety of a nuclear reactor in the event of an attack would be something that's not even considered, because who in the world attacks a nuclear power plant in a normal scenario? But if there was something like that to happen, which we've seen in this unstable and dangerous world is becoming a little bit more likely, it would probably be pertinent to start looking into improving the security, even if it requires federal grants to these companies to improve power plant security and also refinery security, to make that a reality. Or at the beginning of war, to immediately have a plan that we could put into action that begins to massively upgrade and improve the security at secure or sensitive sites like refineries, nuclear reactors, and things like that. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Rad Doctor, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Rad Doctor, for that support. He says, do you think NATO has to be worried about giving trophy system due to the likelihood of capture and reverse engineering?
The Russians actually have, I believe, a trophy system of their own at this point, so we wouldn't really have to worry about the capture and reverse engineer of it, because the Russians do have their own. It's just that I've never seen them equipped on any vehicle ever, but I do know that they have their own, and they do exist out there somewhere. It's just that they haven't been put into service yet. So I don't think we have to worry about those falling into their hands. And not only that, the Department of Defense has already decided that they can send them. We know that there's already something that's about to replace that system soon that'll be even more effective, that they either have in the works or is currently about to be rolled out really soon. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And thank you so much once again for the incredible support and helping this channel to keep on running and having a great question as well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang, who puts in a 7. It says, I would rather Ukraine get better electronic warfare systems, and I'm pretty disappointed that Russian drones are still able to attack as well as they do. And you know, AMX10, something very interesting. First of all, thank you for the support. But Ukraine has developed themselves a new anti-drone electronic warfare system called the Parasol, and that was in the short war video earlier today. And it actually has the ability, I believe it's within 500 meters or so, or 50 meters, something like that. It can bring down the FPV drones. And we actually had the video of that on our Twitter from earlier today, of the thing actually in action. I don't think it's ready to deploy just yet, but it is in the development stage, late development, and maybe into production very soon. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, in my opinion, also, could you reread that again, Matthew?
It says he wants electronic warfare systems for the stuff, because he's disappointed about the drones.
I would say that would be good to have. Hopefully we could send something like that, but usually those systems are really expensive, and so I would have to say they probably won't get them, but there may be a possibility in the future they get them if we continue to support even further aid and more aid for them. And so with that, I hope that does address that.
But it's a Parasol, though. The one I just explained, they got that.
They do have that. That is true, Matthew. That is true. But I don't really know a lot about electronic warfare systems, rather than they're wildly expensive most of the time. But with that, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that does address that the best I can. And also, really quickly, someone called Penny Tripiano said, "Why would you advertise vulnerabilities on the internet?" Listen, I'm not saying anything that's new. If you go around and look at the federal reports, the safety inspection reports and stuff that are made on nuclear reactors, all of these flaws are actually out there in public record. You can find them on any power plant out there if they've ever had a problem. Huge shout out, by the way, to my favorite nuclear power plant in the country, which is the Joseph Farley nuclear power plant, which is somewhere down here somewhere. Let's see here. Where the hell is it? Hang on, I want to find this power plant. I think it's right here. Yep, there it is. Huge shout out to the folks at Southern Nuclear down at the Farley Nuclear Power Plant. From what I could find when I was doing research on the power plants in Alabama, this power plant literally has a spotless safety record. The only thing that was ever mentioned on the safety record was that one light bulb was out, I think in like 2009, in one of the inspection rooms. And that's literally the only thing that was there. Rather than that this nuclear reactor works like a charm. The crews and the folks that work down there do an amazing job. This is probably the safest nuclear reactor in the entire country. country. But in other places, that's not the case at all. In northern Alabama, it seems as though that's not the case because that's a very shaky track record according to what we know from federal reports up there. And also, there's a nuclear power plant north of New York City that is infamously dangerous, and a lot of people have wanted to have shut down because it's just that dangerous, and it's so poorly managed and underfunded. I don't know where it is. It's along the Hudson River, but I can't remember exactly where this reactor is. It's like 50-something miles north of New York. I think it's actually kind of close to West Point, and I'm not finding it right now. Dang, why in the world is everything so hard when I want to find it? Like, you can't find it beyond that point. Wait, hang on. Is that it? Nope, that's not it. That's not it. It's somewhere else. I won't look for it anymore because I'll get stuck trying to look for this thing as the internet's, like, lagging the hell and back. But beyond that, the reason why I bring these things up here and there is that because if you don't bring this up eventually and say that this is a concern and start getting people paying attention to it and demanding that changes be made to improve security, something will happen, God forbid. And then everyone will be going, oh, where was the security? And it was because no one cared, and it was never brought to anyone's attention. And I'm all for national security. If there's anything that we can do that will be able to improve national security in the events of wartime or emergency, there should be at least precautionary measures that are planned so that way we can put them into place once something happens. I'm sure we have something like that at the moment, but I think that there should also be permanent security fixtures that should be made, like the improvement of containment structures, things like that, so that way nothing can just happen out of the blue as well. But that's why I bring it up, because that's also kind of like a Russian mindset. When there's a flaw, just shut up and don't bring it up. Just hopefully nothing bad will happen. Flaws should be brought up if there are ones that are seen, because if you can address the flaws now and improve upon the issue, you're far better off than you were just ignoring the problem and acting like it doesn't exist. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, by the way, we're not going to get into all the details right now because we're going to save it for tomorrow's news because it's happening as we speak. But Ukraine is pounding Russia right now, absolutely pounding them in many different areas as well.
Matthew, wait, really quickly, were they up on their tiny post?
What do you mean by that?
Man, the Barack Obama thing, you said they're getting pounded. And I was like, were they up on their tiny
I was like, what the hell? I was like, what kind of joke is this?
Let's see. What did he say, Matthew? What the hell was it?
Ryan and his team were getting pounded up there at their tiny post.
No. He said Ryan and his team were up on their tiny post and they were getting pounded. And then that guy had to lock in. I wish we could show that. We ought to show that someday. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one goes to Larry Murill, who puts in a 5 and says, look back. He wants a look back video with the backstory and the channel backstory. He still wants the video.
You still want the video? We will eventually make that video. I won't be able to make it instantly. I do thank you for the super chats though, but if you're going to throw in that super chat until that video is made, I wouldn't, because we probably won't be able to make that for a while here on the channel. But I still thank you for the support and wanting it, and we will eventually make it. It's just that it probably will not be soon. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Fred Mathewson, who puts in a 5 and says, back in my day, we would strap our flak jackets to the inside door frame of the Humvee for added protection from small arms fire.
That's really cool. And if I remember correctly, those flak jackets were like level 2 plus or something like that. So they weren't going to stop much but shrapnel, I believe. If I'm thinking about the right flak jackets, the ones that would have been from like the 80s. Let's like the M83. No, it's not the M83. The personal PAS GT vest. There we go.
Oh, unfortunately, I was right. Real quick, I don't mean to interrupt, but the ISW just posted something after we were asking about it on the stream earlier, about a couple hours ago. They said that oil refinery, which was struck in the Ryazan Oblast, was actually struck. That was the same one that was struck before, and they struck it again last night.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, it's the same one. They struck it again, and apparently they had fixed it a little bit, and then the Ukrainians just took it right back out.
Damn, dude, they mean it's staying out. But still, that's great to see that the Institute for the Study of War backed that up. And also, Matthew, great memory on that. Very good memory. But also, if you're talking about this, speaking of that super chat, if you're talking about this with the Humvee and improving its protection, that jacket there, I forgot the exact designation for it, but let's see. Oh, buddy. Dude, this guy didn't look that good wearing this. This is, by the way, like the normal helmet. This is the one we actually have here, Matthew, the one I got. The PAS GT level 3 plus helmet that can stop rifle rounds if they hit it at an angle pretty much. But the jacket, though, is way behind the times. Let me see if I can find the name of the jacket. The vest, here we go. Let's see, body armor. It used Kevlar for the first time, but I don't think it provided a lot of protection. Okay, so here we go. Despite its ability to stop pistol rounds, including a 9x19 parabellum full metal jacket, the vest was only ever designed or intended to stop small fragments without injury to the user. And the vest weighed about 9 pounds. So it really couldn't stop much. It could stop shrapnel, and it could stop maybe pistol rounds, but rifle rounds would have pierced clean through. And that's funny, because it's just, I mean, I don't think that vest looked great. But still, it was an improvement on what they had, which was nothing before that. But still, pretty cool. But thank you for sharing that story, and really neat to know that y'all would do that. Maybe y'all double-layered it or something. I don't know, but still, pretty cool. And thank you for sharing that fact. But with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Badger Bro, who puts in a 5. It says, Enforcer, is it possible, excuse me, to fix an M777 on a flatbed of a wrecker to facilitate shoot and scoot?
Yes, you could do something like that. That pretty much would be making a Caesar SPG, but an American version of it, but you could certainly do something like that. You would just have to make sure that the truck is heavy-duty enough and the frame is heavy-duty enough to deal with the recoil, because the recoil could end up flipping the truck if it's too light of a truck, or it could actually end up bending the frame if the recoil affects it a little bit too much, because the frame's too light. But with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well, because you could certainly do something like that. And I have a feeling that the United States is really probably going to start looking down that route for the M777s. Let me see if, let's see, American wheeled SPG. Let me see if we have any of these. Let's see here. Wow, a lot of people actually have wheeled SPGs. Well, tracked SPGs, actually. Whoops. But let's see here. T19. Okay, those aren't it. Wheeled SPG. So let's look through these, and I'll show you all this list. This is on Wikipedia, by the way. Cuba. I'm not believing that. But anyways, let's see.
I'll take some Cuba.
Cuba. And then we got the brand new Czech SPG, the Dita, that we showed on the stream a while ago, which looks bussin'. And then let's
Razzle dazzle camo on that one.
And then we got the Caesar Mark 1, and then we got the Caesar Mark 2, which is replacing it at the moment. We then have the German ones, like this stupid-looking RCH 155, which works, but it looks stupid. I don't think anyone can...
I like that one, actually.
Really?
Yes, that's actually pretty decent. I like it.
I don't. Like, I think this looks better than that thing. I'll be entirely honest. This even looks a little weird.
I don't like this one. It looks a little too USSR-esque.
Dude, this thing looks like it's about to go before it fires, and then it fires the round at you. But let's see here. And then Rheinmetall also came up with the ATI, which I think is the drippiest of all of the wheeled SPGs that they're coming up with. I think it looks pretty cool. And then, let's see, what else? India has some, but we don't talk about that. And then they, let's see here. Israel has some. But we want to see what America's got. Oh my goodness, we've entered the World War II Italian era, which was one hell of a trip. This was a tank destroyer for the Italians in World War II, by the way. This is actually a fairly common one. We don't talk about them, though, because they didn't do well in that category in World War II. But anyways, moving on from that, it's time for us to see, does the United States have any? So we have the Brutus 155mm howitzer, which was an experimental version of a wheeled SPG. We then have the Hawkeye 105 mobile weapon system, which we actually have. Oh my god. Okay, we're not even watching this video because that scared the hell out of me. I'm startled like a deer. My eardrums got blown out, dude. Like, oh my god. That actually threw me off. Dude, that actually threw me off when that happened. It scared the shit out of me. I thought someone broke into our house. But anyways, with that, I hope that it shows us that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, so while we move on from that little unfortunate thing, that was stupid. Whoever did that, bastard. But anyways, moving on to our next one here, we have a 5 from CK Bold, who says, "Take a live chat question," and we shall. CK, thank you very much for that support. While I try to get our adrenaline under control from that bastard right there. But anyways, this question goes to Wolfhound, who says, "Is the trophy a single-use system?"
The trophy is not a single-use system from what I understand. I believe the trophy system has multiple uses per octagon or per launcher. At least that's what I understand. Let me check. Trophy system. I don't know what's up, y'all, but my throat's been really dry the whole night, so sorry about that. But anyways, let's see. Let's see here. Design. Capabilities. Okay, so what do we got here? Let's see, trophy system operational, low and high intensity combat. The system has intercepted a variety of threats, including a Kornet ATGM, the most common kind of ATGM used by the Russians, RPG-29, and then it just says etc. And so, nice. But let's see here. Let's see, EFP. Let's see, will affect the shaped plasma jet. Let's see, drone. Let's see, use of the system limitation. So let's see, incapable of defeating kinetic energy anti-tank weapons, which is what I assume was the APFSDS Dart deal earlier. And let's see here. Let's see, one of the concerns is weight, because it's a fairly heavy system, weighs about half a ton. It actually almost weighs a whole ton. Let's see here. One smaller vehicles, which are projected outwards. The trophy system have a donut-like window of vulnerability to attacks from directly above, or the slow speed of the drone and the gravity drop grenade might have caused it to be filtered out by the trophy's sensors. Let's see here. I'm not seeing anything about it running out of ammo. Oh, hang on. This arrangement is designed to overwhelm the trophy APS of Merkava tanks by having a second missile available before the active protection system can react after the first intercept. Reloading requires at least 1.5 seconds. So we don't have a number of how many times this thing can fire, but apparently it takes 1.5 seconds for the thing to be able to fire off another charge. So we at least know that. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can about the active protection system, because we don't know the exact amount of charges it has. It can fire more than once, but we just don't know how many more times it can fire beyond the first time. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one is going to go to Amix10 Speedy Bang Bang once again, who puts in a 5 and says, "Take a live chat question," and we shall. Thank you very much, Amix10 Speedy Bang Bang. And let me make sure of something real quick, because something does not look right. Let me go back and make sure that is the accurate thing in the super chat. Let's see here. Let's see, Amix10. He did say that. He said the same thing as CK Bold. That's weird. Right in the same row. But anyways, this live chat question goes to Marvelous Matt, who says, "What is the sitrep of the Free Russian Brigade?"
The Free Russian Army has withdrawn from Belgrade. They apparently sustained high losses, did not really turn over any new recruits, and are apparently kind of greatly weakened from the excursion. So we don't really hear a lot about them anymore, to be honest. And they really quietly withdraw. We didn't even know that they had left until days later. And so I hope that addresses that the best I can, because that's really all we know at the moment, and we don't really know anything else extra. So I hate to say it, but that's all I got. And so with that, I had to pull it up, man, because it scared the shit out of me when you played on that video. So I was like, I had to go pull up another one. But still, with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again for support and sponsoring that live chat. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to, let's see here, Junebug, who puts in a 5. And it says, "Go Leaf Spring Army," and hi to Twisted. Also, go Ukraine.
Hey, and go Ukraine. And also, hi to Twisted. I hope Twisted's doing well. And also, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And oh, hello there. But with that, I hope we were able to address that the best we could. And we are on to the next one.
The next one goes to Steve T, who's been around for a very long time. And he puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Steve, for your support. He says, can we get the Enforcer and Enforcer Matte dashboard bobbleheads in the store? Oh, and pick a more relevant question from the chat.
Dang, what a burn. Why in the world come in with such a burn? Goodness gracious. Steve T, put some ice on that. That's a 3rd degree burn right there that you just gave. But beyond that, great question. And we will see about trying to do bobbleheads in the future. But we already kind of got something lined up coming up soon for next month's merch release that we've already been working on in the background. It's something that's really going to blow y'all away when y'all see it, because we're working with one of the largest providers in this industry to make this possible. It is going to be very high quality. It's going to look amazing. And not only that, I think it's something that's really going to be up all of y'all's alley, because it's got Matthew and me jumping at the seams to do this thing. It's actually something that y'all don't even know about at the moment. Like many of y'all asked, could we do shirts and hoodies? No one wanted a coffee line, so we actually ended up shelving the coffee line for a while until we know that there will eventually be a demand for that, and we don't know when that will be. But some of y'all wanted shirts and hoodies. Some of y'all wanted, I think, memorabilia items. Some of y'all wanted some other stuff. I forgot what the other 3rd or 4th category was. But beyond that, this thing that we're coming out with next month is not in any of those categories. It's just in its own category. It's an incredibly cool one, and we think y'all are going to love it. So hopefully we'll see. But with that, I hope that does address that part the best I can. But bobbleheads may be in the future. It's not going to be the next month's thing, but it may be in the future. So we'll possibly see about doing that. Because that would be really cool, Matthew, if we made an Enforcer Man bobblehead, and we made one with Enforcer on the bottom of it, and then one with Enforcer Matt on the bottom. That would be incredibly cool to do. So maybe we could do something like that, sell them as a 2 bobblehead set, where you have Enforcer and Enforcer Matt, and they're both little Enforcer Men. And so with that, thank you so much once again for asking a really cool question. Thank you for the support. We will make sure to get a question from the chat. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
And the question from the chat is going to go to Mary T, who says, let's see here, how will chemical weapons be responded to? And also, Enforcer, by the way, I got some news here about what allegedly type of chemical weapons being used in Ukraine. And we're being told by the U.S. State Department now that Moscow is using chloropycerin. It's not said like that, but it's chloropycerin or something like that, a choking agent. And also riot control agents. I'm assuming they're referring to CS tear gas as well. So that's the weapons that are being used.
Wait, you mean chloropycerin?
Or picerin,
Picerin. Oh my god, you call it chloropycerin.
Chloropycerin. I'm sure it probably is like chloropycerin if you choke on it.
That's what R. Kelly used. This is chloropycerin, Matthew. Like,
wanna piss on you,
man. When it's World War I and R. Kelly is the guy in charge of the gas. What did you launch on them over there? I launched chloropiss on them. No, it's chloropycerin, damn it. You're supposed to be shooting chloropycerin. But beyond that, let's see here. Let me see.
It doesn't sound like the chemical weapon I thought it was, though. It sounds like maybe it's some kind of, like, just basically tear gas is my understanding of it. I thought they meant they were using something horrific like I don't know, VX. What's a horrific chemical agent?
Like mustard gas, oxyl bromide. Well, not
yeah, that would be really bad.
Yeah, that stuff would be bad. Let's see. The chlorine gas, White Cross, I forgot some of the others. But nevertheless, this is one of the posters that was made for chloropycerin back in the day. You cough, cry, and vomit. Sounds like a fun night on the town. And then you quiet, wash your eyes, and warmth. And I don't know what the hell that second part means. Quiet, wash eyes, warmth. Like, is that like live, laugh, love in the World War I form? I don't know. But it's kind of like a militarized version of tear gas is pretty much what this is. Also, what kind of flypaper did they have back in the day that smells like strong enough that you would know the smell?
Hell if I know. It smells like flypaper. I guess it smells like glue or something like that.
Hang on, let's see.
Also, I was doing some looking here real quick. I was trying to see. It sounds actually, because I'm not an expert on chemical weapons, I'll say that, but it sounds like chloropycerin, or however it's pronounced, can actually permanently damage the lungs as well. So it sounds like it's actually a little bit more serious than tear gas. considering it cause permanent damage. I think CS tear gas can also do that if you're exposed to it long enough, but not immediately. But it sounds like this is some type of soil fumigant, but it's turned into a poison gas by adding something to it, is my understanding.
And so, from what I can read right here, this is what we've got. In World War I, German forces used concentrated chloropicrin against Allied forces as a tear gas. While not as lethal as other chemical weapons, it induced vomiting and forced Allied soldiers to remove their masks to vomit, exposing them to more toxic gases used as weapons during war. So it really is a tear gas. It's just a really strong tear gas. It's not extremely dangerous on its own, but technically this does fall under chemical warfare, as it is classified as a chemical weapon. So, take that for what you will, because it was used as a poison gas in World War I and ended up being banned after the war and the Geneva Convention. So technically, the Russians are conducting chemical warfare on Ukrainian soldiers, which is interesting, very interesting. And that does violate the nuclear, biological, chemical red line that we laid out at the beginning of the war. And so now we'll see, how does the U.S. respond. I have a feeling we're probably going to ignore it, but that is still very concerning to hear that they now are confirming they're using it, although we've known that the Russians have been using it in very limited numbers for months at this point. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to the Badger Bro, who puts in a 5 and says, Enforcer, the U.S. forces used PAC-V hovercrafts in Vietnam, and can Ukraine use it for Rasputitsa and to cross the Dnipro?
Let's see here. 1 second. Hovercraft? Let me see here. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Patrol air cushion vehicles. They could, yes. They certainly could do something like that. Problem is, they don't really have any. And so, for them to be able to use something like this, they would have to be able to find them. And also, on top of that, these vehicles, if they ever come under any kind of rifle fire, the cushion could be punctured, which could lead to massive issues with it being demobilized as well. So, while it would be able to deal with the Rasputitsa a lot better, it wouldn't really be able to deal with, say, enemy fire that well. And so then it once again, like we were talking about earlier, it jeopardizes mobility for less armor or less protection, and then that ends up being an issue of its own. Also, Matthew, this little hovercraft right here was going around going, I like pennies. That doesn't even look like a dangerous looking like smile or anything, man. That thing goes around looking like it goes, I smell pennies or something like that. It's like, I wouldn't be scared of that if I saw it. I'd be like, get that thing the hell out of here.
What the hell, man? That's wild.
I'm there and imagine being in BC and seeing this thing come up on you. You would be like, no freaking way. They brought up Moopus, like that or something like that. This thing isn't even a monster or nothing. Dude, imagine this thing like getting right up on a VC tunnel, like, you know, stopping right in front of it. Like VC guy pops his head out of the hole and looks straight at that face. I can just imagine the face going, do you have walnuts? Or something like that. It's like, nah, I don't have walnuts. See you, man. But anyways, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, it's time for us to move on to the next one. But thank you once again for the support.
All right, and the next one goes to Alex Burleton, who puts in a 5 as well. He says, keep up the good work, and take one from the chat.
And we will keep up the good work, Alex Burleton, and we will make sure to give them from the chat. And so what do we got, Matthew?
And the one from the chat goes to Barry Badranath, who says, howdy, I have a request. Can we deep dive? What is the attackums with the cluster like here, technically speaking?
Can you translate that live chat for me? Because I'm not really understanding what it's asking.
He says, can we have a deep dive on the attackums with the cluster? I think he meant to say, like, right now.
Yes, we can. Let me go get the attackums and start talking about variants. So, the ATACMS missile in general can carry a 500-pound payload of any kind. So that means that the cluster munition payload that it carries when it's in the cluster variant is 500 pounds worth of cluster bombs, which is an incredibly large amount. It's like hundreds of them. But let me see here if I can find out that information. Here we go. This would actually be the M39A1 Block 1 variant of the ATACMS missile, which carries 300 M74 bomblets. Or you could actually get the the M39 Block 1, which carried 950 of them. And that warhead actually weighed 1,303 pounds. I'm sure that was at the sacrifice of range. Yes, it was, because the one that carries the heavier warhead, the far heavier warhead, can only travel about 103 miles. The one that carried the far lighter warhead could actually travel almost twice the distance at 190 miles. So going off of that, the use of the cluster munition that we saw in Ukraine probably was the M39A1 Block 1, because it didn't look like there was hundreds and hundreds of bomblets. It looked like there was really just 300 of them or so. It wasn't a high number. And so going off of that, we know that it may have been 190 miles away from its actual launch point, the target that was hit. And the Ukrainians used these to attack soft targets like logistical structures, convoys, training camps, and other things like that. Unitary warheads are usually used against larger targets like Dzhankoy Airfield and other airfields, and also static points like that, because the unitary warhead is going to be more devastating to something along those lines. So I hope that goes into a little bit of a rabbit hole fairly well about the cluster munition versions of the ATACMS and how they're used. And I thank you so much once again for the support and sponsoring that live chat and also making this channel possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Neil Vizinon, who puts in a 5 and says, just so we know it when we see it, what was the first tank that Russia made? Because we know it's coming to the front eventually.
Let's see here. That would be... let me see here. 1 second, folks. Gotta go find this thing. Oh, y'all gonna love this thing. It was the Tsar tank.
Oh my god.
That thing is
emotional damage.
Man, this is yo mama so fat. When they carry her around, they carry her on the Tsar tank. But so like that. But anyways, this is the first tank that the Russians ever made. It was never put into service. It was entirely experimental, but it did exist. It was tested from 1914 to 1915 until they abandoned the concept. And so the first real tank that the Russians had was the MS-17. And let me go get that tank right here. Oh, hang on. Let me just go type in first Russian tank. There we go. It's actually the T-18. So let me take y'all to this. This is the T-18. This is actually the first real usable Russian tank ever in history. I believe it was brought about during the time of the Soviet Union. 1928 to 1931. I believe this was one of their first tanks, if I remember correctly. Let's see. Yeah, it was. It was the first tank the Soviets had. And so that's it. It's horrendous looking, really. It's ugly, I would say, and there's not really a lot more to add. Will we ever see these used in Ukraine? Never. These things will never be used, because by that point the Russians will have ended the war. But there is a possibility, you know, that one of them could be whipped out and used as a static fortification. You never know. But it's a little cute. It's a cute little baby, and look how small the tracks are. Oh, it's so bitty. But anyways, with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Arsenic, who puts in a 5 and says the governor of the Bank of Russia has finally admitted that Western sanctions are hitting its oil exports, and now the trolls are down.
And the trolls are down. Some trolls are down, some others aren't. But beyond that, that is good to hear, and we love to know that the Russians are admitting that damage is being caused, because that means it's getting so bad they can't ignore it, which means that it's incredibly bad by this point. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And I thank you so much once again for the support and sharing that little tidbit of info with us. And of course, helping this channel to keep on running as well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Neil Vizinon, who puts in a 5 and says, Enforcer, given how the Russian military is going downhill, and you're right, he says, what's your best guess for when the soldiers will start using rifled musket?
Oh, rifled musket. Good question. Let's see here. I would say the rifled musket will probably end up getting used about 2 years from now. The war's dragged on for 2 years, but in reality, most soldiers will end up getting issued Mosin Nagant rifles, which, believe it or not, was one of the first rifles I owned, because back in the day, you could get these things for, well, back in the day, that wasn't that long ago. That was like 2020? I think 2019, something
You
like
see,
that.
years ago, I tried to
put me in a but beyond that, this is the Mosin Nagant. It is one of the oldest rifles that is still in service around the world, because the Russians have issued these to some soldiers in the war in Ukraine. Back in the day, you used to be able to get these things for like $330, and that's how much I got mine for back in 2020. But nowadays, surplus military rifles are insanely expensive, and these hunks of junk nowadays are like $600 and $700 for a Mosin Nagant, which is ridiculously stupid, considering how crappy of a gun this thing is. But this is probably what they would end up being issued if they actually started to run out AKs. They would probably end up getting Mosin Nagants instead. Are they bad? Yes. Or do they have many issues? Yes. Man, I can tell you that mine had a special kind of an issue where when you would fire the cartridge would swell inside of the chamber and the bolt wouldn't open. So you had to go get a mallet or a hammer and beat it open to be able to use it. Terrible. I never run into that problem with any American bolt action that's military surplus, like the 1903 or the Krag. Never run into that problem. You get a Mosin, first thing I run into, boom, bolt stuck. Like bolt actions don't jam. Like, that's the whole thing about like lever actions and bolt actions. A jam is really tough to get, yet it jammed. I don't even know how to explain that. That's how bad it was. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and I thank you so much once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Made in Canada. Excuse me.
Whoa.
Made in Canada 182, who put in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Made in Canada, for that support. They said, first, we need an update on Matt's desk situation. Still in the down position. And no, it's back up. I'm standing again. Already. And second, I got my flag on Friday. Oh my God, I love it. I can't wait for the mug to arrive. LLT, LSA. Hey, thank you very much, Made in Canada. I'm glad to hear you like that flag. I'm glad to hear it indeed. And it must have taken it a good minute to get to Canada, because if it just got here on Friday, it took a good minute. But I'm glad you like it. And also, I can't wait for your mug to arrive. And also, the desk is up, like I said. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank you so much for the incredible support, Made in Canada. I'm so happy that you love the flag. We put so much effort into that, so much time and quality, and now, like, folks like you are finally getting the last flags that are out there in the mail, because those international orders went out a long time ago, weeks ago, actually. So great to know that they're finally getting out there. I love to know that you like it, because we've been seeing people all around the world sending pictures of the flags, and it is incredibly cool, and we love to see them. And I thank you so much for finding it to be great. We got as high a quality of flag as possible. I made sure that the autographs looked as good as they could. The packing, we tried to make the best we could, and I hope you enjoyed the little sticker that came with it, which was the extra special goodie that we put in all of them. Funnily enough, those stickers cost us hundreds of dollars that we ate just because we wanted y'all to get something a little extra special. No expense was spared either on the quality of the flag, the quality of the packing, or the extra goodie. We wanted to make sure that everything was top notch. And I'm glad to see that you love it. And I cannot wait for you to get the mug, because the mug is also really good. Everyone has been ranting and raving for days now, because everyone's already been getting the mugs, because we were able to streamline the shipping process on that a lot better. But everyone has been getting the mugs, and everyone is loving them. Everyone is saying they're great looking, that they're beautiful, they're really classy, and that's exactly what we were looking for and exactly what we were going for. And I'm so happy to hear that everyone is loving those as well. And I can't wait for you to get yours as well, Made in Canada 182. And I hope that we get a raving rating back on the mug as well. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the incredible support and helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you help to make it possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and also, real quick, just to do it real fast, I don't have them all together, so unfortunately, if you have sent me a picture, I'm not going to be able to show all of them. I just saw two that just happened to come in a while ago. But Enforcer, if you want to go to our likes tab on our Twitter page, we actually have some pictures of the LSA flag flying above some houses, and also in a sick gaming setup, too.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, dude, we can look at them. So let's go. All right. Yeah. All right. So I see pictures of the mug. I see one picture of the mug, and then I see one picture of the flag. Is that all I'm supposed to be seeing?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Good. So, boom. Look at that.
There's the flag. Look at that.
That
Look
is
at
so
that.
cool. It looks really good, actually. I mean, wow. That is so cool.
I'm just saying that blue looks bluer than the sky. I'm telling you, that's a dark blue.
Man, that is a beautiful blue right there. Honestly, the flag is just gorgeous. I mean, that is incredible looking. I gotta say, I love to see that. I love to see that. And also, we have another picture down here of the LSA mug that made it to William. And look at that. Look at that. Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice?
That is very nice. It's very nice, Andy. And also, by the way, there was an extra one on the likes page as well. Go back to the like page. There should be one more.
Let's see here. I'm on the like page right here. And
refresh it.
Let's see.
Let's see here. What's happening with this? What is happening? Let me see here. I'll just re-like it real quick so that we don't have to scroll through all the likes and everything.
Okay. Oh man, Romania. we don't want that to happen. Well, let's see here. Okay, we're waiting, and while we're waiting, and everyone's saying, "Wow, nice! I know it looks so good." Like the flags were beautiful. The design is incredible. Torosaur really went above and beyond with the design, and they look so good when they're actually flying out there. But I want everyone to remember though, the folks who do have flags right now that are in the live chat. We have heard that the signature apparently will fade. Sadly, that's apparently just a reality. The paint Sharpie put on it apparently doesn't hold too well. So, like if it gets rained on or if it's out in the sun for a while, it will get bleached a little. So just make sure to be aware of that, so that way you can make sure to kind of stay on top of that. And also, I heard apparently, Matthew, that it was in the replies. So let's see what we got here.
I replied. Let's see. I don't know what happened. I pressed the like button to re-like it, and it disappeared everywhere. I don't even see it on our likes tab anymore, and I hate that because it was a cool picture of the desk setup and everything.
What? What do you mean?
Let's see.
You got to get it back.
Let's see replies. Let me scroll through the replies real quick and see if I can spot it in there, like Miss Disa said. Miss Disa knows what I'm doing probably better than I do at this point because I don't even recall doing that. Let's see here. Oh, here it is. Here we go. So I re-liked it again. So see if it pops up under the likes tab. Refresh the page.
And so here we go. Refresh. Also, Sivan
Schneider. And also, Sivan Snyder. Tell him.
There's nothing wrong with Romania. It's just a joke on this channel because there's some loser, mental ill person out there who pulled up pretty much softcore, and he did it while looking for the country Romania or something like that. And so that's why we say Romania. It's nothing wrong with Romania at all. Romania is really cool, and we have a lot of Romanian viewers. But that's why we say it. But also, look at this! Look at this!
Man,
this looks like an operations room. I'm not gonna lie.
Man. He's got the mug, he's got the flag, and he's got the stream up. I'm telling you what, this like I said over there on the right in the comments, that's a top tier level setup.
That really is. That's actually better than my setup. Like Matthew can tell you, it's even better than mine. That is really nice. And I love to see the mug, and I love to see the flag back there in the corner. This is really, really cool. And so I hope that does address that well and shows you all of the flag and mug pictures that we have for the moment. And it's great to see that the map is on the Koreas. Really cool. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And also that actually looks like the live stream. I'm not gonna lie, because you see the little OBS thing down there with the red on it showing that we're live. So I think that's actually our live stream running when that picture was taken, but really, really cool nevertheless. But still, thank you all so much once again for getting all these flags and the mugs, and thank you Made in Canada 182 for really liking the mug, really liking the flag, and hopefully looking forward to the mug too, because we've heard nothing but amazing rants and raves about the flags, the mugs, everything in between, and we love to know that people are really enjoying them and loving being a part of the Lee Spring Army too as a part of it. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and moving on to our next one here, we have one from Neil Vizanot, who puts into 5. It says, lightning might not strike twice, but apparently Ukraine does. Just ask Russian oil.
They did. They struck in the same place twice, which is funny because they made sure that thing's going to stay knocked out. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to A. Grimes, who puts in a 3 and says, keep up the great work.
And we will keep up the great work, A. Grimes. And thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you help to make it possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Paramecium 13, who puts in a 2 and says, so is Putin bringing out the airbrush?
Let's see. Putin bringing out the airbrush. What for?
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't get the reference. But I would say maybe. Maybe he's a painter. I do know of other leaders who were failed painters. But still, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Cat Chaser, who puts in a 2 and says, will the Kerch Bridge be destroyed? Yes.
Yes. It is only a matter of time. But the answer to that is yes. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
They say, excuse me, Mr. Ukrainian, how much explosive do you want on Kerch Bridge? They said, yes.
Many. Plenty. Man, they said anything that ended with Y. Many. Plenty. Any.
The Spring Army sends its regards.
What the hell? Wait.
You know, the guy does that chuckle, you know, in the little Sign My Rocket thing. He goes, and if I...
Let's see. Matthew, they said, how many explosives do you want on the Kerch Bridge? And they said, 20. Any, plenty, Jenny, Benny, Kenny, Denny, Lenny. Like they just started going through the list.
Damn.
It's like they just started listing them all. Wait, no, man. They said they kept on going. They went Lenny, Henny, Wenny, Denny. They just kept on going. You know what I mean? I just pulled up a thing that said words that rhyme with many, and it just pulled all those up. But still, beyond that, Henny. Oh, it's a wacky slash. But anyways, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Nova, who puts in a 2 and says, should look up the Northrop Grumman Phantom Laser. And also, have y'all heard about the Manta? The let's see, not NORAD, but DARPA Manta? That's pretty cool too.
I haven't heard about that one in particular. But let's see, we have a fridge-sized laser called the Phantom, and we actually have it right here. This is the laser.
Oh, look at that! It's like a
small generator.
Hell, I don't know. Yeah, something like that.
Oh hell, I don't know. Like, yeah, it looks like a small generator, but that's really cool.
Looks like trouble.
Oh, looks like something America's going to use to crush our enemies. But still, thank you so much for giving support, and thank you for sharing this thing. It looks like a generator to me, and hopefully we'll be able to see this thing in action sometime in the future. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And with that, we are fresh out of Super Chat questions. So once again, no cap. Thank you all very much for the support of the channel and helping to keep us running.
Wait.
And
say that.
Thanks to everyone.
Say that one more time, Matthew. Like you're saying that it's no cap.
No cap. Emotional damage.
Emotional damage. But anyways, it is time for us to get on into those live chats. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
So we're not moving on to the live chats just yet.
Oh,
First of all, we have to get the Morse code decoders of the stream. And we have Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Rumpelstiltskin, David Millsaps, and Toxic Bananas. They said the Morse code for tonight says, purges are beginning in the Russian government again. Pressure must be growing around war. Long live the LSA, Slava Ukraine.
And that's the sound of money.
The sound of money.
Yeah, let's get it, baby. That's the sound of money. And y'all got it dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message of the night. I gotta congratulate y'all for getting that correct on the 798th day of the war. That's absolutely incredible. Only y'all folks can get it right. And y'all are the amazing folks in the Lee Spring Army Signal Corps that continue to help us to get the message and the Morse code message every single day and every single night for everyone in the live chat to know what in the world we're even talking about. And so with that, thank y'all so much once again for deciphering that Morse code message. Thank y'all for being the Lee Spring Army Signal Corps. And thank y'all for being absolute channel legends on top of that. And so with that, we are on to the live chats.
And the first live chat's going to go to Joseph Gordon, who says, what do you think about the U.S. troops getting sent to the Middle East to build a port near Israel?
I've heard about that. One thing that was very interesting to me about that is that one of the ships that was going to be put underway for this humanitarian mission, because that's what it is in the end, ended up being stopped by pro-Palestine protesters because they said, American warships shouldn't be going overseas and killing these people. And it was literally a humanitarian ship with not a single weapon on board. I was like, wow, this is really a high IQ move right here to do this one. Like, this really makes me feel like these are smart people. Like, there's an actual video on TikTok. Like, they actually stormed the naval yard and got up to the gangway onto the ship, and then they got stopped there. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, let me actually go see. Let's see. Pro-Palestine supporters. Stop U.S. warship. I'm sure if I put in warship, we'll find the video. Let's see. Let's see here. Hang on, let me see. Maybe this is it. Yeah, this is a clickbait website, though. But let me see here. It was in Tacoma. And let me see if I can pull this thing up and find out the name of the ship. Let's see. Let's see here. Tacoma. Let's see. Organizer said it was being loaded with weapons. Where the hell's the name of the ship? Let's see here. So
yep, I can't find it.
Let's see. I found it, but I can't find the name of the ship. Let's see. Read more.
That's a bunch of shit.
Okay, so here it is. Well, actually, no, I don't want to show you the website because the website isn't that great. But the ship is clearly. Let me. Oh my god, I hate this. I want to show it. Let me go and try and find it somewhere else. Because I saw this. Let's see. Press TV. Maybe they'll include the name of it. Because usually they like to include the name of the ship and act like, remember that such and such. Oh, here we go. Here's the actual video. Let me just go straight to Twitter, and I'll show you all the video. Imagine how brave these people are. And these folks are actually storming a harbor with a naval war, well, with a ship of the U.S. Navy in it. And then look at the ship, Matt. Tell me, does this look like any ship of war to you? That clearly looks like a humanitarian or a bulk vessel to me that carries, like, cargo and pretty much aid for the large part.
Let me guess, they went and laid underneath the ship and said, we're not moving.
No, they ran up the gangway and said, you murderers, as they're, like, pretty much bringing humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip. But let me show it to you. Look at these heroes, charging this warship that has cranes all along the deck for loading large amounts of cargo on and off. Probably some kind of food, because we already know that the United States Air Force has been conducting air operations over the Gaza Strip, dropping humanitarian aid into the Strip. So I'm highly doubting that the cargo ship here, or really what is it called? The tender vessel. That's what this is. I'm highly doubting that the tender vessel is a ship of war that is trying to kill Palestinians. Highly doubting it. But here they go. They're running through.
They ran up the gangway and said, murderers! And the sailor said, excuse me, sir, this is going to the refugees. It could be for maybe murdering a hamburger.
Listen to him. Watch. Oh, we're saving humanity by stopping this humanitarian aid from getting to the people we like. They're really doing a lot. They're really doing a lot.
Top-notch intelligence, man. Intelligence at its finest. I just love to see it. And these people don't have a damn clue what they're even, like, there for. I guarantee you 100%. These people never do.
No, they don't. Let me see if I can actually find the class of ship this is. U.S. Navy ships. Let me go through, because we know that it's going to be one of the tender vessels or something along those lines. So let me scroll through. So these are the ones that are commissioned. So let's see here. Dock landing ship. That's kind of close, but that's not it. Let's see. Littoral combat ship, attack submarine, dock landing ship. Okay, that's the same. So wait, hang on. Oh, hang on. Wait. Let's see here. Cruiser destroyer, attack submarine, dock landing ship. Same class. Okay, so. I will look through the.
Also, Walter said, "Tell the enforcer that's the MSC Oiler."
Okay, so the MSC Oiler. Let's type that in. Thank you so much, Walter Lakota, for being a true G. So, all right. So, according to what we have, this is what I've been able to find on a quick Google search about the ship. So we'll read it just to tell you. Our fleet oiler program has 15 ships that provide a variety of fuels for ship propulsion, aircraft operation, and power generation. Fleet replenishment oils are the largest subset of the Navy's combat logistic forces, and also routinely shuttle food and other dry cargo as fleet freight for transfers to customers as their fuel is delivered. 3 fleet oilers were constructed or were built or constructed with double hulls designed to meet Oil Protection Act of 1990 requirements, including the following ones. But as you can see here, the short description of the ship is that it can routinely shuttle food and other dry cargo. So we know this thing isn't transferring because it has nothing in the description that says this thing is transferring weapons of war. It appears that this thing is most likely transferring humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip, most likely fuels to help generators run, and also food and additional provisions to try and help out the people who are there. So these stupid idiots are sitting there saying, "We support Palestine," and then running up to the ship that's actually supporting the Palestinians and going, "Wait, stop, you jackasses, you can't do that." It's like, what do y'all want? It's like, what do y'all want? Like, y'all are so stupid, y'all don't even know what the ship is or what it does. It's like, every ship in the Navy isn't a warship that's killing people. It's like, we're not even killing these people. We're not even involved over there. And that tells you how ignorant these people are and what's actually going on over there.
They're the type to run up the gangway or something like that, and they're like, "You can't come up here, sir." And they're like, "Stop it! You're hurting me!" And like that, "You're killing me! Stop it!"
Yeah.
And it's like eventually something bad happens, and they're like, "Why'd something bad happen to me?" It's like, "Well, I don't know. You ran onto a shipyard and you probably got hurt." It's like, come on now.
And look,
these. Why are these people so stupid? Like the people that run up doing these protest stunts. Like most of them, like I'm not kidding, most of them don't even know why they're there. That goes for pretty much anything. Like they just see a crowd of people and they're like, "Oh, that looks like some fun. I'll go join in with that chaos." And then they just go run up into a ship like this and do something stupid.
Yeah. And this is the exact class of ship we just saw right here. That is the exact vessel that we just saw. There are the loading cranes. There's the major superstructure on the rear of the vessel. It is the exact same ship. Not a ship of war. This is completely a logistics vessel. And look at the stupid caption on this tweet. Protesters block the entrance of U.S. warship heading to Gaza. I can't imagine how brave these people are. Like, they're going to get shot or something for this. Like, at best, they'll get arrested. You know, it's like, this like... But anyways, let me show you the rest of the clip, because the intelligence continues to grow. We, of course, have the stupid drum beat, which comes with literally every protest in America. It's like de facto, every protest must have some idiot beating a drum somewhere. No matter who it is, who they are, where they are, the drum's there. So here comes the cops. Imagine how brave they are, because the cops are actually a part of the death squads, apparently. There's the ship once again. Look at that. That is literally the exact same profile and everything of the other ship we just saw on the Navy's website. That is not a warship. It's a oiler, just like Walter Lakota said. He got it down on the nail. But anyways, the cops are coming in to get these folks out of there and to arrest them. I think.
I'm sorry, man, but I think the mental illness is running rampant. Like, this is insane.
The mental illness really is running rampant here, because it's like, they're yelling "Free, free Palestine" as they stop a ship from leaving the United States, which its entire job is about to be helping the Palestinians eat and also survive. And they're stopping it from leaving and also saying that the United States needs to stop killing Palestinians while we're literally about to leave to help them. You know, it's... Like, let me say this really quickly, folks. This is why I don't get into politics, because it is these kinds of people on all sides that really run me away from it, because there are so many stupid people like this who will literally shoot their own movements in the foot by stopping things that actually would help them out in the end. So, yeah, that's why I don't get involved in this kind of stuff. It's just a little bit too stupid for me. Hot Dog Man will. I could imagine Hot Dog Man being on this gangway right now. But... not me, and I don't think anyone in the Lee Spring Army would do anything stupid like this, even if it was in support of our interests, like Ukraine or the United States or the Western world. But anyways, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, it's time for us to move on to the next question.
All right, so our next live chat question is going to go to, let's see here, Chronically Alien, who said, realistically, how many Bradleys could we actually send to Ukraine?
We could probably send hundreds if we wanted to. We could probably even send about 1,000 maybe, because we have a large amount of Bradleys that are being retired or are being shelved at the moment because we just don't see them being used anytime in the future. So we can actually send a lot of them to Ukraine. And I also think that we're already looking at trying to find a replacement to the Bradley, a lot like we're trying to find a replacement for really everything. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and I thank you so much once again for asking a good question. Also, moving on back into the live chat really quickly, someone said, well, you're taking my life, said someone is paying these people to go do this goofy stuff. I have to say this. A lot of people say this, you're taking my life. I actually don't believe that. Yes, there are probably some people who are getting paid to do that kind of stuff because there's always someone in there that's getting paid. But the large bulk of these people are really stupid, misguided people. That's the best way I can always explain it. And that's the thing that's always concerning is how ignorant and uneducated people can be, yet they'll act out so passionately, strongly, and with so much conviction and energy on things they hardly even understand, like that being an oiler, not a warship, or an aircraft carrier, or something along those lines.
You know what happens is there are people that are kind of a little bit lost to begin with, and they're looking for a cause to support, and they really can't quite find a place to support something, so they get sucked into this stupid junk, like to go do something stupid like that, and they just go along with it because they want to fit into some group, and that's how people get sucked into doing stupid stuff like that. Is just because they're looking to belong somewhere, but they end up belonging in the wrong spot, and they end up doing stupid crap.
Yeah, and also another thing is that I'll say this. I don't get at all the people who want free Palestine or any of the people who back that stuff up. I think it's a ridiculous mindset because you're ending up supporting a group of people who are run by a proxy group which is supported by Iran, an enemy of the United States, that wants you dead. So you're supporting them. You're pretty much supporting your own eventual death or doom. So there's no real logic in supporting those people because they would want you dead if they could get you or find you somehow. So the other thing that really gets me is how misguided these people really are. But at the same time, you can't stop them from doing what they do. But I will have a caveat here to this in a minute. It is a free country, and I don't believe that people should be punished for going out and being a part of a rally or a demonstration or something like that for whatever they believe in, even if it's something as stupid and backwards as that, in my opinion. They still have the right to free speech and they can do what they want, as long as they have the proper kind of approval from the city that they can protest and wear, so that way they can cordon off the streets and all that. But once you do something stupid like running into a operational harbor and stopping a U.S. naval vessel from conducting its operations, that is unlawful. And if those people are arrested and charged with crimes for doing something like that, more power to the prosecutors, because they shouldn't be doing something like that. That's crossing the line in between free speech and doing things that are unlawful or outright stupid. And that's something I'm not a big fan of. I'm not a big fan of anyone doing that. If I ever see anything that looks unlawful or anything along those lines, I don't believe that's free speech. I believe that's certainly crossing the line and entering the realms of barbarism that we try and keep out of this country and should be greatly curtailed through, law enforcement action for the large part. That's what I would say. I don't care if those people, and I'll also say this as well, I don't like when pro-Ukrainians in some instances have done similar things to that in different instances here in the West and have done goofy publicity stunts. I'm not for that. I'm all for supporting Ukraine. I'm not for doing stupid, outlandish things to get 15 minutes of fame. And if those people get in trouble for doing something like that, that's how it works. I believe in it being fair across the board. But something stupid like that, like we just watched, that is something that if they were arrested and prosecuted for conducting some kind of a crime, then I'm fine with it. I don't complain. I don't believe that's suppression of free speech at all. That's just how it works. You cross the line. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can in my standpoint on that. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Born in Ukraine, who says, do you remember the Russian propaganda commercial depicting a cold German Christmas with a family per hamster in the soup?
Yes!
And perhaps that's the new Russian without oil and gas.
Yes, I remember that we actually showed that on this channel. We showed the hamster being eaten on the channel. And yes, the Russians are going to be like that here soon, because if they run out of gas and oil, really gas and diesel by the end of this year, their winter is going to be fairly cold, because a lot of their energy grid runs on gas and oil and things like that. So they're going to be in some pretty bad trouble by that point at that time of year. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And I thank you so much once again for throwing in a good comment there, actually bringing me down memory lane. And with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Tank 2, who says, why are there Western banks still doing business in Russia? What the hell?
Wait a minute. I don't know if there are any banks really conducting any kind of business with the Russians. Matthew, do you know anything about that?
I don't know the specific banks, but I'm pretty sure there's at least one out there that is.
I would have to actually declare ignorance on that because I don't really focus on the banks much. We mostly focus on the more strategic aspects of things. So, you know, take that for what you will. Sadly, I'd have to declare ignorance. That's all I heard. I heard like you're like a samurai. So I was like, hey man, what the hell? That's pretty cool. I was like, that's pretty neat. But let's see here. Let's see. I saw someone talking about the riots that are happening at the campuses. Once again, really, like, you know, I'll be outright about this because I don't feel like this is a political statement. I feel like this is more a common sense statement. There is a line, and there's not a fine line. It's a very clear and distinct line in between lawful, peaceful demonstrations and unlawful assemblies and riots. And a lot of what I've heard is happening. I don't really pay attention to it much because it's that kind of stupid world I try and stay out of that really exists on all sides of this country. But from what I've heard and what I've seen, I would deem most of those what some people are trying to call peaceful demonstrations, unlawful assemblies and riots, and I would have them dealt with that way, having them broken up by the police, you know, things like that, because there is a point where you go from a peaceful demonstration and practicing your right to free speech, and then you cross the line and you go into an unlawful assembly or a riot. Really, an unlawful assembly is a riot, and a riot is an unlawful assembly. And some of those have entered that realm. And that is something that should not be permissible in this country. Yes, say all you want, say anything you want, even if it is to America's detriment. But do not cross the line where things become unlawful, where you occupy buildings, or you end up taking university staff hostage in some situations, or you hurl rocks at people, or you assault Jews walking down the streets. Those kinds of things are unlawful. In that I can't ever disagree with. If it was happening in the opposite stance of people who supported Israel and they were doing the same things, even though I do support Israel in the situation because they're a pro-Western aligned country, I'd be saying the exact same thing about that. Those would be unlawful assemblies that should be broken up, and the folks who are the major ringleaders in those groups should be arrested and held responsible for the crimes they've conducted, because that is crossing the line in between free speech and a riot. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. I don't know. I'm staying as neutral down the board as I can. That's why I made sure to address both sides, vice versa. But I just feel, in my opinion, that things should be enforced equally across the board. And people are really starting to blur the lines everywhere in the country these days, on all sides, in between what's free speech and a riot. And a lot of people are acting like riots are an extension of free speech, which they're not. That's just something that I've got to say, you know, me personally, that's what I see. But with that, I hope that does address it well. And actually, Matthew, we're not on to the final question tonight. We actually have another question. Actually a super chat from Walter Lakota. So what do we got, Matthew?
So Walter put in another massive support. He put in a 50 this time, and he said, me again. And the ship in the video is a Mirage ship NV Cape Orlando, and it's strategic, sea-lift ship for the U.S. Defense Department.
And thank you so much for the support. And let's see. The Cape Orlando. Are you sure it was this one, Walter A. Lakota? Because this one looks really different than the one we saw in the video. I think it was, I forgot the other name of the ship. But it looked different. It had like a large superstructure near to the stern, and then it had a whole bunch of heavy cranes towards, I guess, amidships, if you call it that, I believe. But nevertheless, thank you so much for sharing that. And also, once again, even this ship as well, it's not a warship. It is a support vessel. It is pretty much just a Navy-run cargo ship for the large part. And it's stupid to stop these things from running. Like those people were. How brave were they, Matthew, to stop a cargo ship from the Navy? Wow, you know, like just amazing.
Excuse me, you need to leave.
You need to leave. But anyways, wait, hang on, Matthew. Well, go ahead then. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again for the incredible support, Walter E. Lakota, in helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you once again for being the OG and Ellison Bosun in helping us out with the maritime facts. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the lucky last question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
All right, and that viewer is actually Notorious GRG. And Notorious GRG does not have a question for us, but he does have something to show us. And it's under our likes tab on our Twitter page. So, Enforcer, go take a look.
Oh, let's go take a look. Let's have a look, see, yeah? It's on the likes tab, yeah? Oh!
And also, Walter said it's one of the two that was in Tacoma Port, by the way, in reference to that show.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Walter E. Lakota, for sharing that. Because I didn't know that. I only saw the one. I didn't see the second one, but thank you for sharing that. And also, look at this!
But look at the flag! Look at that!
Look at that! It's flying right by the American flag and right by an American-Ukrainian flag. That is cool. I like that.
Beautiful.
Beautiful stuff.
Play some more of that beautiful music.
Why'd you stop playing that beautiful music? But still, what a sight. I gotta say, Matthew, this hits hard, Matthew. This hits heavy.
Very nice. Emotional support.
Emotional uplifting. But still, I love this. This is absolutely incredible. An amazing, nice back patio right here. Hopefully it's back patio. But still, I love to see it. Thank you for sharing that with us, Notorious GRG. And thank you so much once again for being an absolute legend and an old guard of this channel, and also getting a flag as well. And you can actually see the signature right there. And it's crazy, Matthew, thinking about it, because I can't even connect it now. I actually had to hand sign all of those flags, so that I actually had to sign that one personally. But they all blended together, so I can't really remember which signature was which.
Also, look at how thick that flag is compared to even the American flags. Like, you can see through the American flags. You can't even see through the LSA flag. Like, it's solid blue.
Dude, that thing be thick. It really is thick. I mean,
double-sided, man. Really thick.
That thing is double-sided. And not only that, it's made of really thick polyester in the first place. So it's like double thick. Not just double-sided, but the fabric itself was thick. So this thing was as high quality as we could make it. And I'm so happy that you love it, Notorious GRG. And I love to see it in the center spot on the back patio. The Lee Spring Army will never die. And so with that, what a perfect way to round out the stream, Matthew. That was a really good final question of the night. Really a final thing of the night. But with that, we have reached the end of the night stream. I've got to thank everyone so much once again for enjoying this channel tonight and watching it and being here with us. Tonight we reached a peak of something like 7.6 thousand live viewers, something along those lines, and 51.5 thousand people have watched this stream before it ended. I've got to say so much once again that we are so honored, entirely honored, to always have each and every one of y'all here with us every single night as we continue to cover the news. A lot of y'all say that y'all are really lucky that we cover the news so that way y'all can watch it. In honesty, we're really lucky to have all of y'all with us as we cover the news, because we would be here each and every day, regardless whether there was a lot of y'all or a little of y'all. So honestly, the one that should be lucky for having anyone here should be us having y'all here. And I got to thank y'all for being here with us tonight and getting to listen to all of this news as we covered it again. If y'all are brand new to the channel and y'all really enjoyed it, please make sure to subscribe and like and comment. It makes us really happy. And not only that, it makes the channel look nice, because having 210,000 subscribers is really nice. But what if we had 211? I mean, that would be even cooler. Because right now we're at 210,863. The Lee Spring Army just truly grows stronger by the day, and we're getting really close to 211,000. So if you would like to subscribe, maybe you could be the 211,000th subscriber. Who knows? But with that, it is time for us to end. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die. Put an LSA in the chat, and good night.
And good night, folks, and thank you once again for another great stream, and be sure to join the Enforcer tomorrow midday for the Short War Summary. We're going to have some big news tomorrow, I can tell you that right now, and also join us again tomorrow for the Nightly War News stream at 10 p.m. Eastern. And thank you all for watching. We'll see you tomorrow, and Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava, and, of course, good night.
Yes. The Lee Spring Army sends its regards.